My beloved child, you must understand something now before the moment slips into something too late to reverse. Your identity is not up for debate, nor is your worth fragile like a paper crown in a windstorm. I do not whisper your name in heaven out of obligation. I declare it with power because you are my beloved, my intentional creation, not a forgotten face in a crowd. The enemy has tried to bury you under layers of shame, rejection, and confusion, hoping you would forget who you are. But I am here right now pressing this truth upon you because there is no more time to hesitate. You are not ordinary. You are not disposable. You are not just surviving. You are cherished. And when I say cherished, I do not mean tolerated. I do not mean pitied. I mean treasured in the deepest chambers of my divine affection. I mean engraved, not written in erasable ink, not penciled in temporarily, but carved into the very pulse of my heart. You live in a place that no darkness can erase, no accusation can silence, no failure can cancel. I am not coming to remind you of your sins. I'm arriving to remind you of your name. I've seen you trying to earn what was always freely given, measuring your value by how others treat you or by the pace of your progress. But that scale is broken. It never came from me. That is why I am urging you now, pleading even do not place your security in titles, possessions, relationships, or fragile approval from people who do not know your eternity. Your protection begins the moment you stand in the truth of who you are to me. Until you do that, your soul will be vulnerable to every lie the world throws like flaming arrows. I have not called you into this hour to merely exist. I've called you to awaken, to remember, to take up the robe I wove for you, woven with mercy, embroidered in purpose, soaked in eternal love. Even now, I stretch out my hand to steady your trembling heart, not because you are weak, but because I know what's trying to reach you. And I refuse to let fear define you when I have already called you mine. I see the cracks in your armor. I see the way your eyes glance at others, wondering if they are more loved than you, more protected, more seen. But hear me now. Nothing and no one outranks the love I have sealed over you. No matter what voices from your past try to resurrect their mockery, I silence them with the thunder of my affection. And I say again, you are cherished. Not yesterday, not someday. Now, this instant, in the middle of your mess, before the healing is visible, before the breakthrough comes, before you feel strong, you are cherished. Not because of what you do, but because of who I am and who you are to me. So guard your identity, child. Guard it fiercely. The thief comes first to rob this truth before anything else, because if he can steal your sense of worth, the rest falls with ease. But I will let him not on my watch. That's why I lean so close right now, why I'm speaking with such urgency, because I'm not just offering comfort. I'm issuing a call. Pick up your name again. Dust it off from where it's been buried under disappointment. Hold it like a sword. Wear it like a crown. Walk like one who has been marked by heaven. You are cherished, and that means you're not walking alone into what's coming. You're walking with the one whose heartbeat holds your name. Don't be distracted by how peaceful everything looks on the surface. What you're seeing with your natural eyes is not the full picture. Beneath the calm, beneath the laughter, beneath the illusion of safety, there are spiritual fault lines shifting in silence. The adversary does not knock with noise. First, he camouflages himself in routine, in distraction, in comfort so polished you almost miss the trap beneath it. And that's why I'm lifting the veil, peeling it back even now, because time is too short for you to be caught unaware. I am not revealing these shadows to scare you, my child, but to prepare you, because love warns, and love exposes what pretends to be harmless. What's brewing isn't obvious to the untrained heart, but I have chosen you to see deeper, feel stronger, and respond sooner. There's a reason you've been feeling unsettled even in the middle of what should be peace. That restlessness is not a sign of weakness, it's a divine alarm clock sounding in your spirit. I've been whispering, stirring, nudging, but now I must speak louder because the delay in your response is costing too much. You matter far too much to walk blind into spiritual warfare disguised as everyday life. There are assignments planned against your focus, against your family, against your emotional stability crafted not by accident but through calculated schemes. And if you continue to ignore the inner tension you feel, you'll walk directly into what I meant for you to overcome. That's why I say it now. Look past the smiles. Look past the schedule. Look past the ease. I'm showing you the storm clouds not to depress you, but to activate the warrior in you that's been sleeping too long under layers of normalcy. You were never built to survive only on comfort. You were built to hear my signals, to react quickly, to take spiritual cover when I say move even when others don't see a reason. What's approaching doesn't carry sirens in the air, it carries subtle shifts in atmosphere that only my sensitive ones feel. You're one of them. You were never meant to blend in. You've always had the gift to sense when something is off even if you can't explain it. That gift is your early warning. Do not silence it to fit into circles that laugh at what they cannot perceive. You've been feeling heavier lately, haven't you? But not because you're weak. The weight is spiritual pressure, the buildup of unspoken battles, the magnetic pull of things that try to attach to your soul and drain your strength when you're not looking. That's why I've been telling you to unplug more often, to draw away, to recharge in my presence before the pressure becomes too heavy to carry. You matter so deeply that I will not let you continue unaware. Even now, I'm calling you to rise above your usual habits. Set new watches. Close old doors. Question every harmless thing that has gradually desensitized your convictions. Every delay to respond allows the enemy to advance one step closer to what should have been off limits. So do not wait for the storm to break it. Don't wait for the damage. Don't wait for collapse. I am speaking before it happens because I still have time to shield you. But you must take what I show you seriously. The most dangerous storms are those that begin in silence. The most devastating battles are those you failed to prepare for because you mistook quietness for safety. I don't want to see you hurt by what you could have avoided. I don't want to see your light dimmed because you allowed familiar voices to mock your discernment. If I'm showing you the sky changing, it's because you were chosen to respond while others still sleep. Cherished one. This is not panic, it is purpose. What others miss, you are meant to detect. And what you detect, you are meant to act upon. Lift your eyes now. Scan the horizon with your spirit. Let me show you what's coming so you can stand, not shiver. You don't need to be afraid of the storm, just stay close to the one who sees it before it begins. Listen this very instant. While clocks tick in familiar rhythms and traffic lights pulse in predictable cycles, a covert noose is being drawn around tender places of your soul, and its threads are spun from subtle compromises nobody applauds yet everybody eventually regrets. The quietness of these minutes is deceptive. Spiritual predators prefer sitting rooms over battlefields because soft couches disarm faster than swords. While screens glow and notifications chirp like friendly birds, agendas that oppose your destiny are mapping routes into your attention, hoping to nest before you notice. That is why I interrupt your scrolling, your errands, your coffee sips with this alarm that cannot wait. Rouse your inner sentry before the siege completes its circle. You will not hear marching boots or see banners waving, no. The encroachment advances through overlooked habits, a half-truth repeated until it feels factual, a delay in prayer that extends one sunrise too many, a private frustration nursed instead of surrendered. Each small concession seems harmless, yet together they form an invisible cord tightening millimeter by millimeter until breathing hope feels strenuous. Refuse that suffocation. Snap away. Survey the perimeter of your routines. What conversations leave you drained rather than strengthened? Which entertainments mute conviction until holiness seems extreme? Identify them quickly, because the perimeter is shrinking as you ponder. I do not divulge this to induce paranoia. I reveal it to ignite precision. I want you strategic, not fearful, alert, not anxious, because clarity is armor stronger than steel. Examine the lullaby culture hums into your ears, lyrics persuading you that urgency is exaggerated, that tomorrow always waits, that discernment is outdated. Those melodies are laced with sedatives. Spit them out. Stand, stretch your spirit, and let my words crackle like lightning through the haze of complacency. Now is the hour to reinforce disciplines you postponed, to sharpen vows you let dull, to close windows you once promised to seal. Fortify mornings with gratitude spoken aloud before opinions flood your feed. Lace afternoons with whispered scripture so truth circles back whenever deceit attempts to slip in. Conclude evenings with uncompromising confession, releasing every unresolved emotion into my care before shadows deepen. These practices may appear small, yet they function like hidden beams that hold entire cathedrals upright. While you repair those beams, recognize who benefits from your distraction. Darkness profits when visionaries drowse. Your calling terrifies hell, so lullabies have been tailored to your preferences, content curated to keep you pacified, arguments designed to keep you offended, indulgences timed to keep you too weary to intercede. Break that choreography by choosing the opposite spirit at every turn. Where bitterness beckons, bless. Where apathy yawns, act. Where cynicism jokes, prophecy promise. Each counter-move widens breathing room inside the tightening coil. Do not underestimate a single courageous action, one decisive refusal to click, one gracious response to provocation, one bold step toward the lonely neighbor, because obedience shreds snares faster than angels can gather the pieces. I know fatigue presses against your eyelids. I feel the undertow of news cycles wearing down compassion, yet my power surges most fiercely in hearts that admit fatigue and still lift their gaze. So trade that weariness for my vigor. Slip your hand into mine. Let me recalibrate your pulse to heaven's cadence, and you will sense the constriction loosening already. I have not summoned you to constant crisis mode. I have summoned you to vigilant peace, serene yet watchful, calm yet ready, rested yet armed with discernment so keen that hidden threats cannot remain hidden long. Remember, serpents slither silently until lanterns swing high. So keep your lantern aflame with relentless worship, stubborn hope, riotous joy that refuses to apologize for shining. If neighbors ask why you carry such fire while the air feels tranquil, tell them quiet winds often precede tornadoes and you choose preparation over regret. Invite them under the covering of truth before gusts arrive, but whether they heed the invitation or not, do not dim your flame to match their comfort. The circle tightens even now, but your awareness widens faster, your footing grows surer, your heart beats in tandem with mine, and fear finds no purchase where light expands. Before the hour grows too late, before decisions become regrets, and before the trap disguised as convenience tightens, I call you into divine sight, because what you cannot see will eventually shape what you become. This is not the time for blurry vision or spiritual drowsiness. This is the moment where awareness becomes your armor, your shield, your rescue. If your eyes remain closed, you may unknowingly welcome what was sent to dismantle you. But if you awaken now, truly awaken, then no darkness can catch you off guard. Awareness is not merely knowing facts, it is discernment sharpened by my presence. It is the ability to perceive the spiritual motives beneath surface behavior. It is the alertness to notice when peace leaves a room, when something unseen enters through the unguarded door of your attention. I am training your perception because what is approaching will be cloaked in beauty, cloaked in logic, cloaked in emotional appeal. It will not scream danger, it will whisper familiarity. But I've placed a sensor in your spirit, a sacred unrest, and I'm urging you to stop ignoring it. The dulling of that sense is how spiritual blindness begins. You do not need to understand everything immediately, but you must recognize when something is off. You must not override your inner check with external approval. That sensation you feel when your soul recoils in silence, that's me, not anxiety. That weight in your chest that deepens when you stay too long in conversations that drain your purity, that's a warning, not just discomfort. Train your spiritual eyes like a soldier trains in darkness, like a pilot learns instruments before flying blind. Every day you delay in sharpening awareness is a day closer to deception taking root. And child, deception once planted grows with frightening speed. That's why I'm being so direct with you, because you matter too much to be caught in snares that only fools ignore. I've not made you foolish. You have my spirit, and my spirit gives clarity beyond your intellect. You don't need to rely on your logic alone. I am downloading wisdom that interrupts your thoughts, that sits in your stomach like holy fire, that burns through confusion if you let it rise. But you must protect that inner radar. Guard it like treasure. Do not let compromise cloud your insight. Even subtle rebellion can smudge the lens through which you see. Bitterness, jealousy, comparison, these are not just attitudes. They are fog makers. They obscure your view until right looks wrong and wrong feels justified. That's why I say repent quickly. Don't wait. Don't let minor defilement become permanent blindness. The more you walk in awareness, the more you will feel my alerts without delay. You'll notice the tone of a voice, the shift in atmosphere, the hidden hook beneath the bait. You'll step out of traps others call normal. And yes, they'll wonder why you refuse to participate. They'll call you overreactive, too spiritual, too intense, but they won't see what you see. That's okay. Your obedience is not their business. Your clarity is not up for negotiation. You are not called to fit and you are called to pierce through. I will not let you be blindsided if you keep your eyes open. That's the condition. Do not numb yourself with entertainment that robs awareness. Do not scroll yourself into spiritual amnesia. Do not let hours pass without checking in with me. I am not far away, whispering from a distance. I am right here, speaking through stillness, through nudges, through your own discomfort. If something drains you, don't dismiss it. If peace evaporates around a certain habit, relationship, place, pay attention. Awareness begins with honoring your inner response to my promptings. I don't shout unless I must, but if you train your ears to hear me in the quiet, I'll keep you 10 steps ahead of every setup. That's how I protect you, through awareness sharpened by my nearness. But you must decide it's worth protecting. Your awareness is your first defense, your earliest shield, and once it cracks, the rest of your armor is exposed. So cherish it. Strengthen it. Feed it with worship. Guard it with silence. And walk with the confidence of one who sees beyond appearances. The shadows are lengthening, but they will not overtake the one whose eyes are wide open. Hear me in this very breath. Beloved sentinel of my purpose, lift your inner ear above street-level chatter and receive the coded rhythm of my warning drums. I have stationed myself in the highest tower of your destiny, scanning horizons beyond mortal sightlines, and what I perceive compels me to lean over ramparts and relay the coordinates of oncoming conflict. You are not abandoned to guesswork. I, the captain of angelic hosts, choose to brief you personally because the assault marching your direction wears tactics custom-built for your particular calling. It aims to collapse pillars you barely notice. Subtle interruptions to focus. Cleverly planted fatigue. Counterfeit comfort dressed as helpful counsel. Yet while subversion creeps through alleyways, I broadcast intelligence through the corridors of your spirit. Sharpen your resolve. Brace your posture. Tighten your grasp on every promise I ever spoke. My whispers are seldom thunderous, but they slice through deception with laser precision, moments of instinct that jolt you awake at 3 a.m, sudden scriptures that flare in memory while washing dishes, odd urgency to pray for someone you haven't thought about in years. Blows are not random sparks. They are signal flares from your commander. Do not file them under coincidence. Treat them as encrypted dispatches requiring immediate response. When my voice brushes your conscience, it does so to preempt defeat, not to scold your weakness. If you heed swiftly, you will climb above ambush and observe every strategy unravel beneath your obedience. Standing watch, however, costs something. It demands the discipline of staying nourished on truth when convenience offers sweeter lies. It asks you to lock eyes with me more often than you glance at public opinion, to cultivate stillness louder than trending outrage. Night hair on the wall grows cold and conversations below grow tempting, but leave your station and the gates go unmanned. Remain, and I supply the endurance ordinary strength cannot provide. Think of athletes training at altitude. The thin atmosphere of commitment builds lungs for altars. Likewise, watchful living stretches your spiritual capacity until prayer becomes oxygen and discernment, muscle memory. From that vantage, you detect small disturbances others dismiss, a shift in language that normalizes compromise, a cheerful slogan concealing hopelessness, an entertainment fad grooming hearts for numbness. When you spot these patterns, do not shrug them off, sound your internal trumpet. Speak life aloud in rooms where shadows linger. Intercede with fervor until heaviness lifts. Intercession is not dramatic theatrics. It is strategic air support that clears corridors for my deliverance to flow unhindered. Know this too. Watchmen rarely stand alone. I am knitting together a network of guardians whose combined vigilance forms an unbroken perimeter around shared promises. Ask me to highlight your co-sentinels, friends who feel odd urgency at the same instant you do, strangers whose prayers echo yours without prior agreement. Reach for them. Link shields. Hell trembles when isolated torches converge into blazing walls of light. Collaboration does not dilute your unique assignment. It multiplies your reach. Where your voice falters, another can amplify. Where your faith dips, another can hoist you higher. Even solitude upon the rampart is merely temporary. Between relay points I pass revelation from one watchtower to the next until the entire fortress buzzes with unified alertness. Do not fear what approaches. Revere the one who alerts you first. Panic corrodes precision, but reverence refines it. Let every alarm I sound propel you into proactive authority. Tighten boundaries, reinforce habits, rehearse declarations. Saturate your atmosphere with worship until confusion finds no foothold. Picture saplings bending beneath early autumn winds. If their roots are shallow, the first storm uproots them. If their roots are deep, identical winds strengthen trunk and spread. I am giving you wind warnings ahead of schedule so you can drive roots deeper, refuse fractional allegiance, and emerge sturdier than before assault began. Enemy encirclement might feel intimidating, yet your awareness converts intimidation into intelligence, and intelligence into triumph. So rise now, no tremor in your knees, no apology on your lips. Let spine straighten, let gaze lock forward, let spirit tune to my frequency where whispers roar with destiny. While adversaries close ranks, you will not crumble, you will climb. You will hear, adjust, and outmaneuver. You will intercept sabotage before it detonates and transform battlefields into testimonies. For I remain on this wall with you, eyes aflame, voice sure, commitment unshakable, and together we will greet the dawn, having held every inch entrusted to your care. Now listen closely, this moment is critical. The enemy does not always arrive in armor or fury. Sometimes he strolls in dressed as relief. Not every hand extended to you is sent from me. Not every voice that sounds soothing carries purity. There are smiles that hide daggers, advice that's laced with poison, and invitations that look like kindness but drag you closer to captivity. That's why I'm urging you now, reinforce your gates with truth. Not assumption, not preference, not popular opinion, pure, unfiltered, Holy Spirit breathed truth. Because the disguise is getting better. The counterfeit grows more convincing. What once looked obviously wicked now wears a cloak of partial scripture, now quotes bits of me out of context, now offers ease instead of obedience. You cannot afford to welcome what simply sounds nice. It must resonate with the truth I've already written deep inside you. If it contradicts my word, even slightly, shut the gate. Deception will not knock with threats. It will knock with promises. It will appeal to your weariness. It will target your wounds. It will find the places where you are still waiting for answers, still healing from betrayal, still longing for resolution, and it will craft a message tailored for your vulnerability. That's why the only unbreakable lock is truth, truth that cannot be bribed, cannot be softened, cannot be swayed by applause. I see the areas where you've been tempted to let your guard down, not because you're rebellious, but because you're tired. I see how exhaustion has tried to convince you to accept the lesser version of your calling. But I am stepping in now to wake you with urgency. You are not just a gatekeeper, you are the very gate itself. What you allow in will determine the direction of your soul. That's not dramatic. That's reality. The door to your life must not be open to every appealing idea, even if it looks like it carries peace. False peace is the deadliest weapon in this hour. It doesn't argue. It sedates. And when you're finally silent enough to feel the absence of my presence, the damage has already begun. Truth, however, is not fragile. It doesn't change with trends. It stands when everything else fades. When you anchor your convictions in truth, you stop needing to check the temperature of people's opinions. You stop needing their permission to obey me. You stop hesitating when I give a command that costs comfort. My truth is not merely information, it is stability in a collapsing age. When lies try to dress up as solutions, you'll have discernment that slices straight through the surface. You won't need a debate. You'll just know. And that knowing will protect you like an invisible shield. But that kind of discernment doesn't come from scrolling endlessly or leaning on your own reasoning. It's birthed in the quiet moments when you let my voice cleanse every dusty corner of your mind, when you allow my spirit to scrub away compromise, when you sit at my feet and allow me to make your heart sharp again. I must be honest with you, there are relationships trying to enter through the cracks of your unguarded moments. Conversations that feel affirming, yet drain your fire. Teachings that sound intellectual, yet erode your hunger for righteousness. Influences that seem harmless, but their root system is connected to pride, rebellion, and spiritual decay. The gate is yours to reinforce. I will not do it for you. I will warn you. I will prompt you. I will even wrestle with you in the night through dreams, convictions, and divine restlessness, but the hinge of the gate is your decision. Shut it where you must. Seal it with my word. Bolt it with intercession. And stand by it as one who knows your value is too high to let in every flattering stranger. Your protection does not start with defense against attacks, it starts with refusal to entertain deceit. Let your standard rise again. Let truth be the foundation of every yes and no. Let purity become more precious than popularity. I'm not calling you to paranoia, I'm calling you to precision. Because what's coming next in your life will attract more attention, more invitations, and more subtle opportunities to stray. But if your gate is fortified with truth, none of them will move you. You will recognize the imitation instantly. You will smile, nod, and close the door. You will remain unmoved. You will remain unshaken. And you will walk in peace, not the counterfeit kind, but the kind that truth alone can build. The battle you face now is not only around you, it is raging within the borders of your own mind, where stray thoughts are trying to grow into strongholds. You must treat every thought not as harmless passing scenery, but as a guest either sent from my spirit or from a dark agenda meant to corrupt your focus. Your mind is the field the enemy studies most, because he knows if he can sow just a few distorted beliefs, they will multiply without resistance if left unchecked. That is why I am commanding you now, not gently suggesting guard your thoughts. Do not assume your mental atmosphere is safe just because things seem calm. The war begins where your attention lands. Where your thoughts settle, your choices follow. Where your choices move, your entire direction shifts. If you think lightly about what you allow to repeat in your mind, you will soon find yourself in places I never led you. Like a shepherd with only one lamb left at the edge of night, you must stay alert. This is not about panic, it's about precision. The enemy does not send armies to crash the gate anymore. He sends whispers, carefully timed impressions, and emotional echoes of pain from your past, hoping you will feed them long enough for them to take root. He waits for your tired moments. He watches when you're isolated. He monitors when your heart is aching and vulnerable, and then he releases a thought that seems innocent. You're not really needed. Maybe it's always going to be this way. You're falling behind. They don't care about you. These lies don't announce themselves as enemies. They wear the voice of your own doubt. And if you don't intercept them, they'll begin rewriting the truth I've placed inside of you. So I am teaching you the urgency of daily interception. Do not allow thoughts to roam unchecked. Take hold of each one and ask, does this agree with what God has promised me? If the answer is no, cast it down. Reject it like poison. Speak truth against it immediately, out loud if necessary. Do not wait until the feeling has fully matured. The longer you entertain it, the stronger it becomes. I have given you weapons for this. My word is not decoration. It is your tool for mental warfare. Use it. Declare my truth like a sword until the fog lifts and clarity returns. Do not depend on feelings to validate truth. Often, truth feels like resistance before it feels like peace. There are thoughts that will come dressed in the colors of logic and self-protection, but they are subtle cages keeping you from healing, keeping you from reaching out, keeping you from stepping into the risk of obedience. You must expose them. You must shine light into them. Because left in darkness, they will grow fangs. And they won't stop with one area of your life. They'll spread like mold into every relationship, every decision, every dream. I have called you to renewal, not decay. But that begins with vigilance. Just as a shepherd counts his lambs every night to ensure none are missing, you must examine your thoughts to ensure none have wandered too far from truth. If they have, go after them. Bring them back. Direct them. Retrain your mind like a warrior sharpens his sword after every battle. And don't do this alone. Invite me into the process. I am not waiting on the sidelines while you wrestle with confusion or discouragement. I'm right here, speaking clarity, flooding your mind with peace that surpasses understanding. But you must choose to focus on what I'm saying instead of what fear is suggesting. Fear will always offer a version of the future that excludes me. That is how you recognize it. My voice may challenge you, but it will never abandon you. It will never isolate you or condemn you. It will remind you who you are, what you carry, and where I'm taking you. That's the atmosphere I want your mind to live in. So be ruthless in your thought life. Do not excuse bitterness. Do not tolerate cycles of guilt. Do not rehearse failure. Train your thoughts to echo what I have already spoken, and you will begin to notice how powerfully your life begins to shift. Atmospheres will change. Chains will break. Directions will realign. It begins not in crowds or pulpits, but here, in the private place of your thinking, where the greatest victories are first won. And that is why I say it again with urgency: guard your thoughts with the care of a shepherd at dusk, because the night is nearer than you think. Let me show you a secret the enemy hates you. Discovering gratitude is not merely a nice attitude. It is a spiritual force, a blazing torch that repels darkness more effectively than long prayers prayed without belief. When the shadows creep in, when discouragement slinks toward your door, when doubt swirls just beyond what you can articulate, gratitude is your weapon. Not just a reaction after blessings arrive, but a deliberate decision to announce light even while surrounded by the unseen. It tells the invisible world, I see who walks with me, even when I can't see where we're going. I urge you to take this seriously, because where you withhold gratitude, fear takes up space. Not all battles are won with shouting. Some are won in quiet rooms, with hearts that whisper, thank you, when nothing in the moment seems worthy of praise. Darkness loses leverage where thanksgiving lives. The enemy feeds on bitterness, murmuring, and self-pity. He thrives in rooms where disappointment echoes louder than trust. But when your soul begins to thank me not for pretend blessings, but for who I'm, even in the delay you build a fortress. You construct walls not of stone but of light. And where there is light, confusion cannot manipulate you. You begin to think differently. You perceive differently. You breathe differently. You are no longer reacting to pressure, you're standing with a power that pressure cannot cancel. That is why I am urging you in this hour. Light the lamp of gratitude and keep it burning, especially when it would feel easier to complain, retreat, or demand answers. When gratitude becomes your rhythm, you no longer crumble under weight, you rise under revelation. You stop begging me to move and begin recognizing how I already am. Gratitude sharpens vision. When you train your spirit to notice me in small details, the right word spoken at the right time, the peace that returns after tears, the strength to make it through another day, you start to see patterns. And those patterns form a map. That map reminds you that I have never left. That I am guiding you still. Even when the terrain feels unfamiliar, gratitude reorients you. It pulls you out of mental fog and anchors your focus to truth instead of fear. Think of it like fire in a window during a blizzard. It doesn't change the weather, but it signals safety, signals warmth, signals someone is still inside, still awake, still expecting dawn. And make no mistake, the enemy hates unexpected. He doesn't mind if you go through the motions. He doesn't mind if you sing psalms or say prayers, as long as your heart stays cold and suspicious. But once gratitude enters the picture, your posture shifts. You stop being a victim and begin walking as a partner in what I'm building. Gratitude is agreement with me. It is your signature on my promises. It says, I may not have seen it yet, but I believe you're already working. And once you begin to live from that place, chains start breaking that you didn't even know were there. Emotional fog lifts. Discouragement shrinks. You become a person the enemy cannot predict because you stop being controlled by what is missing, and you become fueled by what is already given. But understand, this is not about pretending to be happy. This isn't blind positivity. This is war. This is standing in the middle of the battlefield and raising a banner that says, I know who my defender is. When you praise me through tears, when you thank me during silence, when you speak my goodness out loud, when everything in your life begs you not to, that's when spiritual atmospheres shift. That's when breakthrough finds you. Not because I need your gratitude to act, but because your gratitude prepares your heart to receive what I'm already sending. Bitterness closes hands. Gratitude opens them. So I say to you now, place that lamp in your window. Let thankfulness be seen in how you speak, how you react, how you carry yourself when no one is watching. Let it shine when your prayers are answered, and even louder when they are not. Let it burn through midnight silence. Let it glow through aching seasons. Because gratitude will light the way for angels to move, for promises to accelerate, and for you to become unshakable in a world that is always shifting. Let me impress this upon you now, while breath still heats your lungs and possibility still sparks inside every syllable you have yet to release. Your words are seed and sword, blueprint and shield, conduit and declaration, and the unseen realm hinges on how you wield them. When anxiety stalks the corridors of your mind, it first attempts to muzzle you. It knows that if it can convince you to go quiet, hopelessness gains uncontested territory. So I am pressing you. Refuse the gag order of dread. Open your mouth, yes, even when emotion quivers in your throat, even when doubt insists authenticity requires silence, and say what is true anyway. Utter the promise that seems too large for your current space. Announce the healing that looks impossible in the present symptoms. Call forth provision while your pockets still echo. Life is voice activated, and the atmosphere around you is waiting for a cue. If you withhold that cue, emptiness repeats itself. But if you release even faint, shaky declarations of hope, something holy ignites. Think of dry bones in Ezekiel's valley. They remain brittle until prophecy, frail breath wrapped in obedience, began to echo across forgotten graves. The same principle stands now. Hell fears your speech because speech frames outcomes. The serpent in Eden targeted conversation first, not action, because rewriting dialogue rewrites destinies. Do not let him narrate your story. Do not loan him your vocabulary. Even sighs surrendered to me carry transformative power, but complaints rehearsed without surrender become bricks in his fortress. Speak life. Take my word, chew it, and release it like thunder disguised as a whisper. If your circumstances scoff, remember Lazarus. Decay could not debate my command when I called him forth. Borrow that precedence. Look at your dormant dreams, your wounded relationships, your long-delayed opportunities, and tell them, come out. I will back you. I will breathe on your syllables until they surge with resurrection current. Picture embers under ash. One gust revives them into flame. Your confession partnered with divine wind produces that gust. Yet beware, speaking life is not flattery, nor denial of pain. It is courageous alignment with my perspective while pain is still shouting. It is telling midnight, I know dawn exists, and thereby escorting dawn closer. And understand this urgency. Every unspoken affirmation leaks power you cannot afford to lose in this pivotal season. Death thrives on hushed, trauma festers in the unvoiced. Shame metastasizes where testimonies are withheld. Generational curses linger when nobody interrupts them with declarations of blessing. Flip that script now. Interrupt. Override. Erupt. If stuttering is all you manage, stutter truth. It carries weight regardless of eloquence. I did not anoint only polished rhetoric, I anoint and willing vocal cords. Ting over your household though notes crack. Bless your children, though they seem distant. Proclaim clarity though confusion still fibes the room. Angels interpret your intent and amplify every faith-born word into frequencies darkness cannot counterfeit. Make your home a resonance chamber of life. Post verses on walls. Play worship that curates expectation. Converse with friends in hoping-fused tones that leave no space for gossip's mold. And when solitude swallows you, dialogue with me aloud. Let your bedroom hear brave sentences until your own ears believe them. The tongue, small as it is, steers ships through tempests, steer yours deliberately. Speak life at dawn, mid-commute, over lunch, during setbacks, before sleep. Let the cadence become habitual until fear finds no vacancy. Remember, internal narratives set external parameters. Change the script and you expand the borders. Do it now, not later. Later is where paralysis grows. This is the hour, mouth dry, knees knocking, heart racing, still speak. You won't crumble, you will catalyze. For wherever life is proclaimed, I, the resurrection and the life, stand ready to perform what your voice has dared to release. You cannot afford to forget what I have spoken over you, especially now, when uncertainty roams your doorstep like a familiar visitor hoping you'll invite it in. The words I've spoken into your spirit through dreams, scripture, whispers in the still hours are not ornamental. They are weapons, forged in my fire, delivered with divine accuracy, and entrusted to your grip not for display, but for warfare. You may not realize it, but every time I declared peace over you, I placed a blade in your hand. Every time I confirmed your calling, I fastened a shield to your arm. And when I reminded you of your future, I handed you a war cry. You not let those gifts gather dust in the corners of your soul. They were given because I foresaw the battles that would come. I knew discouragement would eventually knock in disguise, cloaked in logic and delayed results. I knew loneliness would attempt to slither into your heart during long, quiet seasons. And I knew confusion would crouch near crossroads, trying to counterfeit my voice. That's why I spoke ahead of time. That's why I gave you promises. They were optional, they were survival. But hear me now, swords are useless if they remain in their sheath. And doubt, while often subtle, is relentless. He will knock not once but again and again, each time with a different tone. Sometimes it arrives in the form of comparison, asking why others are further ahead. Sometimes it comes dressed as fatigue, whispering that your persistence isn't working. Sometimes it slinks in through the mouth of others, well-meaning people who tell you to lower your expectations, to accept less than what I've prepared. You cannot entertain it. The moment you sense it near, reach for what I said. Not what you felt. Not what your mind has tried to reinterpret. Not what the situation looks like. What I said. The raw and uncompromised promise. That is your weapon. Speak it out loud. Declare it until the atmosphere responds. When lies rise, counter them with truth. When your heart begins to sink, lift it by rehearsing what I told you. I am not a man that I should lie. My words are not theories, they are eternal anchors that do not shift based on mood or moment. And child, I haven't changed my mind about you. Just because time has passed or challenges have multiplied doesn't mean I've altered my design. If anything, the delays have sharpened what I'm about to do. But the manifestation depends on your agreement. That agreement is activated when you take up my words as your defense, not just your comfort. You must understand the power of my promise. It splits through darkness. It slices through mental heaviness. It carves new paths where none existed before. There is no force that can withstand a person fully convinced of my voice. That's why the attack on your confidence has been so strategic. The enemy doesn't fear your talent, he fears your belief. He fears what will happen when you stop merely surviving and start declaring. He dreads the day you wake up And remember, you are armed. You've been targeted not because you're weak, but because you carry weapons strong enough to shift legacies. But they must be used. This is not a passive hour. This is not a moment for hoping it works out. This is the time to stand, to speak, to fight with the very words I entrusted to you before the battle ever began. And I will be beside you as you do. You will not swing blindly. My spirit will guide your every declaration. When you speak what I've promised, angels move. When you recite what I've guaranteed, confusion shatters. When you lift my truth like a sword, strongholds fall. Listen up, for it is spiritual reality. And it's time you live in it. Don't wait for another confirmation. You already have my word. Don't look for another sign. The sword is in your hand. Unsheath it. Wield it. Watch the atmosphere shift. Not because of your effort, but because of your authority, and authority rooted in what I said, and sealed by what I cannot revoke. You must no longer permit your past mistakes to rent space in your present thoughts. This is not just about healing anymore. It's about strategy. The adversary has been using your history as a loudspeaker to try and muffle your destiny. Every time you begin to step forward, echoes of yesterday rise like ghosts, pressed in regret, wearing your voice, repeating phrases you thought you buried. You always mess things up. You weren't strong enough before. Why would now be different? You should have been further by now. These are not reflections. These are hired voices sent by hell itself to impersonate your conscience and dismantle your boldness. And today I expose them. Not because you haven't heard them before, but because you've started to believe their tone again. It stops here. You don't owe your past a platform. You don't owe shame another response. I died not just to forgive you, I died to silence every false narrator trying to rewrite your identity in the ink of failure. Listen carefully. Your history has no permission to decide your future unless you hand it the pen. Regret is persuasive because it uses truth in fragments. Yes, you did stumble. Yes, you did delay. Yes, you made choices that you now wish you hadn't. But that is not the whole story. That is not the final chapter. That is not who you are. My mercy didn't overlook those things, it overruled them. And if I no longer accuse you, why do you allow voices from a broken season to keep holding the microphone? I don't just want to restore you, I want to rewire the way you respond when those memories arise. Because they will come, and they will test your growth. But I want you to stand in those moments like a judge with final authority, slamming the gavel of grace, declaring, "This is not admissible evidence anymore." You don't have to relive what I've already redeemed. There is a lie that's been planted in many hearts that to be humble means to stay tethered to your lowest point. That is not humility. That is bondage. Real humility is when you agree with me, even when it's hard to believe something good about yourself. It is when you say, "God, if you say I'm clean, I won't argue. If you say I'm chosen, I will walk like it. If you say I'm free, I'll stop dragging chains I've already been unshackled from." And yes, the enemy will notice. And yes, he will panic. Because the moment you stop letting old failures narrate your now, you begin walking in present tense authority. You start choosing boldness again. You start hearing my voice clearer because the background noise of shame finally gets turned down. You've spent too much time trying to explain your scars. I never asked you to. Scars don't need justification, they are proof you survived. Proof that I brought you out. Proof that even when it didn't look like restoration was possible, grace still found you. So stop hiding what I healed. You don't have to perform perfection. You just have to stop letting yesterday's losses define your confidence today. Every time you entertain those old accusations, you grant squatters rights to despair. But when you declare, "That was then, this is now," the eviction notice goes out. The enemy cannot live where truth reigns. And the truth is, I'm not ashamed of you. I'm not rolling my eyes when you try again. I'm not keeping a record of how many times you fell before. I'm standing, arms open, ready to partner with you in this moment, not the one you wish you had back, but this one. Right now. So silence the noise. Drown it with worship. Overpower it with declarations of who I say you are. Interrupt every lie with praise. And when your past tries to audition for a role in your future, remind it who paid the price for that script and let it know the casting has changed. You are no longer available for roles written by condemnation. You are the redeemed, the restored, the raised-up child of the Most High, and your future will not be narrated by failure ever again. Pause everything for a heartbeat and picture this: your everyday world laid out like a banquet hall, plates clattering with worries, cups overflowing with unfinished tasks, chairs scraped back by restless memories pacing the floor. Now, in the doorway, stands peace embodied in me, waiting for your explicit invitation to pull out the head chair and command the room. Do not underestimate how urgent this choice is, beloved, because chaos thrives on unclaimed spaces. A single empty seat becomes the foothold for tension, and tension, once seated, summons division, suspicion, and sleeplessness as eager companions. I am telling you with the gravity of a final boarding call, extend the welcome immediately. Speak it aloud if you must. Prince of Peace, be seated at the highest place. Once my presence settles, watch anxiety find no cushion, watch bickering lose its appetite, watch intrusive thoughts drift like smoke through an open window. This is not sentimental imagery. It is a tactical maneuver in spiritual governance. You have authority over the atmosphere of your home, your schedule, even the cadence of your internal dialogue, but that authority only activates when you consciously enthrone peace rather than merely admiring it from a distance. Some of you pray for calm yet reserve VIP seating for offense. Others ask for rest yet leave bitterness untouched at the far end of the table. Understand, so long as unreconciled grievances linger, true peace will not compete for elbow room. You must clear the cluttered play settings, repent where grudges still simmer, forgive before conversation resumes, apologize before the sun falls tonight. When reconciliation takes the host's position, every invitation extended to discord is automatically revoked. And make no mistake, unrest will attempt to sneak back in wearing polite disguises, urgent headlines, passive-aggressive jokes, the glare of screens long after midnight. Your vigilance is required. Keep the lamp of thankfulness burning at the center. Keep worship music humming like background conversation. Keep scripture posted on the doors like menus. Whenever tension knocks, require it to read those words first. Most times it will flee before crossing the threshold. Yet do not rely on atmosphere alone. Serve peace with actions. Pace your breathing when conflict spikes. Pour grace into family arguments before voices escalate. Choose a slower answer instead of a sharper retort. These micro-decisions weave a tablecloth of serenity that cannot be easily yanked away. Tell your children, co-workers, even your own mirror, in this space, we honor the one who stills storms. Such declarations sound small, but the unseen realm records them like court orders. Remember, I once calmed a tempest with a sentence. The same authority pulses through you when you echo my heart. Only guard against nostalgia for chaos. Yes, nostalgia. Some hearts grow addicted to drama's adrenaline, mistaking its spikes for relevance. Break that dependence by savoring the quiet until calm feels normal and upper tastes bitter. Then, cultivate laughter, not sarcasm, conversation, not gossip, midnight prayer, not aimless scrolling. As these rhythms echo, angels set watch over your perimeter, and insomnia discovers it has nowhere to recline. Soon even your body will testify: lowered shoulders, steadier pulse, deeper sleep. This is what happens when peace, not panic, carves the seating chart. And from that anchored stance you will move into tomorrow's challenges carrying stillness like armor. Negotiations, deadlines, diagnoses, each will encounter the same unmoved center inside you. Therefore act now. Clear a chair, light the candle, lay out the finest trust you own, and announce with conviction that my peace is not a visitor but the permanent host of your table, and that any appetite for strife has been served its notice effective immediately. Irrevocable, enforced by heaven's decree. You are not starving, yet your soul is underfed. You are consuming constantly, but the meals are empty of nourishment. Every swipe, every click, every reel that drags your attention without intention is not harmless, it is a slow erosion of spiritual sharpness. Do not be deceived into believing you can continually take in noise and still hear my whisper with clarity. The world is shouting constantly, spinning images and information so rapidly that your discernment begins to dull before you even notice. That's not by accident. That's design. The goal is to distract you into spiritual amnesia, to entertain you into numbness, to keep your heart so flooded with temporary visuals that you forget the eternal vision I placed in your spirit. And I am telling you with holy urgency, fast. Not from food this time, but from the noise that has subtly replaced intimacy with me. Withdraw, not because you are losing your salvation, but because you are losing your sensitivity. This is a war for your awareness, and the front lines are in your habits. When you feed your eyes with hours of content designed to addict and not edify, you begin to crave the superficial and lose hunger for the sacred. It doesn't happen all at once. It begins when you tell yourself, just one more scroll, then again, until stillness becomes foreign and boredom feels unbearable. But boredom is not the enemy. It is often the doorway through which I enter with clarity. Silence is not your problem, it's your invitation. I have things to say to you that will not fit in an algorithm. I have secrets to reveal that will never appear in a trending hashtag. I have blueprints for your next season, but they will be buried under noise if you don't come aside. Not everything digital is evil, but if it is displacing my presence, it is a thief wearing flashy clothes. And you know this. You felt it. That inner frustration, that mental clutter, that fog that won't lift. You've noticed the shortened attention span, the irritability, the inability to focus during prayer or absorb my word without distraction. That is not just stress, that is spiritual dehydration. And while you may be doing everything else right, serving, giving, loving, surviving, the neglect of deep soul feeding will eventually cost you your clarity. That is why I am not asking, but instructing. Step away from the stream of distractions and begin to feast again. Not with guilt, but with holy urgency. Fill your inner world with my voice. Read scripture until it speaks back. Meditate until phrases become power. Listen to worship until your atmosphere shifts and you remember what peace feels like again. Let my words become your meals. Let them build your discernment back to strength. Feast on the Psalms until tears come. Dwell in Proverbs until wisdom interrupts your impulses. Absorb the Gospels until you hear my voice in every story. I will meet you there not as a distant deity, but as a friend who has been waiting in the quiet for your return. And in that stillness, I will recalibrate your soul. Your vision will sharpen. You will sense things before they speak. You will discern danger before it manifests. You will detect my movement even in the smallest nudge. Your spirit will remember what it means to feel again deeply, fully, without digital filters numbing your sensitivity. And yes, it will be uncomfortable at first. You may feel restless. You may hear nothing initially. You may even grieve the absence of stimulation. But wait. Keep coming. Sit longer. Even if it feels like a wilderness, I promise there is water beneath that silence. And once you taste it again, nothing else will satisfy you. You'll no longer crave distraction, you'll crave depth. You'll stop checking for updates every 5 minutes and begin checking your spirit for alignment. You'll stop measuring your worth by attention and begin measuring it by assignment. You'll walk through your day hearing me in moments others rush past. You'll discern what's coming before it arrives. You'll regain what was slipping from you, your inner stillness, your conviction, your purpose. So fast, not out of legalism, but out of longing. Not just for a break, but for a breakthrough. Let the scroll stop and the seeking start. Let the feast begin where the noise ends. And in this space, I will restore to you a depth of discernment that the world can never take again. In this hour, you must become intentional with every alliance you permit near your purpose. You are not just choosing friends, you are choosing spiritual climates. You are selecting voices that will either stoke your flame or slowly suffocated under layers of compromise masked as charm. The people you walk closest with are not neutral. Their habits, their words, their spiritual temperature, these things rub off on you even when you aren't paying attention. And now, more than ever, you can't afford to treat proximity casually. Every step matters. Every conversation has weight. I am speaking to your discernment now. Pay attention not only to what people say, but to how your spirit responds after spending time with them. Are you stirred to chase me harder? Or are you dulled, relaxed into comfort that convinces you there's no need to examine yourself? Some will make you laugh. Yes, but not all laughter is holy. There is a kind that numbs, not heals. A kind that mocks what's sacred, softens what should be sharp, and keeps you entertained enough to ignore the slow leak in your conviction. I am not against joy. I offer joy. But I will not let joy become an excuse for spiritual laziness. I will not let fun become your justification for relationships that pull you further from my fire. There are voices that used to speak truth, but now prefer flattery. There are companions who once stood for righteousness but now shrug off compromise as if it's maturity. I see how your soul feels unsettled around them, but you stay, hoping they'll change, or worse, because it's easier than confronting distance. But child, ease is not always safety. Peace is not always passive. Sometimes protection demands distance. Not because you hate them, but because you love me more. I am drawing you into a season of refining. That means the voices in your ear must echo the direction of your calling. You can no longer afford connections that applaud delay, minimize repentance, or make you feel strange for hungering after purity. I know you feel the pressure to keep ties for the sake of loyalty, tradition, or shared history, but history doesn't equal destiny. Not everyone who began the race with you is meant to finish beside you. And that's not rejection, that's pruning. Even Jesus chose 12 but kept 3 closest in his most critical moments. You too must discern who is meant to walk in your inner circle, who strengthens your resolve when you feel tired, who reminds you of the cost when your vision blurs, who dares to speak correction, not to shame you but to sharpen you. These are your people. Treasure them. Go nearer. And for those who once held that place but now mock your depth, do not argue, just step back with grace and let me deal with the shifts. Surround yourself with those who refuse to let your fire go out. Friends who intercede, not just chat. Voices that press you toward truth, even when it's uncomfortable. People who have eternity in their eyes and holiness in their tone. These are not religious people, they are surrendered people. There's a difference. The surrendered will weep with you, war with you, fast with you, speak life into you. They won't let you sit in silence when your spirit is under siege. They won't enable patterns that numb your sensitivity. They will stir the oil in your lamp when they see it running low. This is your moment to realign. Let go of the voices that excuse sin with cleverness. Walk away from gatherings where conviction is mocked and mediocrity is normalized. I will provide new alignments, ones who carry the fire you need, ones who see the gold in you and won't let you bury it beneath approval seeking. And yes, there may be lonely moments as the crowd thins, but I promise, the clarity will be worth the solitude. You are not being isolated. You are being set apart. Because what's ahead requires deeper purity, bolder speech, and unwavering focus. So, choose your company like your life depends on it, because it does. And I will walk closely with you, surrounding you with those who reflect my heart, amplify your vision, and ignite your spirit when the world tries to dim your flame. Let me speak to something that is quietly weakening the foundations of many, not through visible storms, but through slow, silent corrosion. Unhealed bitterness. This unseen rust begins as justified disappointment, hardens into offense, and settles like residue over the heart until mercy becomes unnatural, until grace feels forced, until love becomes cautious and measured. Bitterness doesn't announce its entrance. It hides in silence. It waits in unspoken memories. It wraps itself in phrases like "I've moved on," "It doesn't matter anymore," or "I'm fine." But I, the one who sees the condition of your soul before you speak a word, Know when you are only surviving under layers of spiritual decay. And today, I'm calling you out of that hidden rot, not to shame you but to restore your armor. You see, bitterness is not only emotional, it's spiritual acid. It eats through your defenses slowly. It clouds discernment, it weakens compassion, and it poisons the flow of my voice within you. It creates cracks that allow the enemy easier access, not because I have withdrawn from you, but because you have unknowingly hosted what I never gave permission to stay. And the most dangerous part is how bitterness disguises itself as strength. It will tell you you're just being careful, that you're just protecting your peace, that you've learned your lesson. But I tell you the truth, when the lesson becomes a wall that mercy can't scale, it's no longer wisdom, it's a prison. And I didn't rescue you so you could live behind invisible bars. I'm not asking you to forget the pain. I'm asking you to surrender the right to stay angry about it. That's mercy, not denial, but decision. A decision to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you cannot afford the luxury of carrying chains in a war that demands your full mobility. Your armor must remain intact. And mercy is what polishes it. Mercy is what clears the vision, what softens the voice, what breaks the grip of vengeance pretending to be justice. You must rehearse it again and again until it becomes a reflex, not a burden. Speak it over those who never apologized. Whisper it when their name comes up like step to the. Declare it in prayer until the mention of their face no longer interrupts your peace. And I know that seems impossible now. You may be thinking, but they haven't changed. They haven't made it right. They moved on while I bled. Yes, I saw it all. I grieved with you in every moment of betrayal. I held your heart while others trampled it. But now I ask you, do you trust me to repay what was taken? Do you believe that I can redeem every shattered fragment without needing your bitterness as fuel? Because I can, and I will, but only when you release what you were never meant to carry. Mercy is not passivity, it's a weapon of the unoffendable. It's power cloaked in kindness. It is a declaration to the spiritual realm that you are not governed by hurt, but by heaven. That you refuse to become like those who harmed you. That you choose my nature over your justified rage. And once you begin to walk this out, you will notice the shift. Your mind will clear. Your sleep will deepen. Your prayers will regain strength. Your steps will feel lighter. And your armor, once worn thin by hidden resentment, will shine again, ready for battle without cracks of compromise. Practice mercy the way a musician practices scales. Not just when it's needed, but until it becomes instinct. Until love overrides irritation. Until forgiveness is quicker than offense. Until you no longer need to defend your choice to others because peace will speak louder than any explanation. You are not weak for letting it go. You are wise. You are powerful. You are free. And in that freedom, you will regain clarity, purpose, and resilience no enemy can steal. So rehearse mercy, over and over, until your heart moves in rhythm with mine, strong, soft, untouchable by bitterness, and covered in unbreakable peace. This fight you're facing isn't just physical, emotional, or circumstantial, it's deeply spiritual, and the weapons required aren't found in your natural strength. That's why I don't begin your training with a sword in your hand, but with your heart bowed low before me. It is not weakness to kneel before the battle begins. It is wisdom. The fiercest warriors are those who have learned that surrender to me is the first sign of strength, not the last act of desperation. I am not looking for those who appear powerful on the outside, but are unraveling within. I am looking for hearts that tremble before me before they ever roar in front of giants, and that begins on your knees not as a posture of defeat, but as a position of transfer. This is where the burden shifts. This is where your anxiety lays down, and my strategy rises up. This is where you give me your weapons of fear, control, and exhaustion, and I place in your hands authority, precision, and peace that slices through the chaos. Understand this. You can't win the battles ahead using the methods that once worked in past seasons. What is coming will require a different kind of readiness, a readiness that doesn't start with rehearsing what you know, but with releasing what you're clinging to. That offense you're still holding, the timeline you keep demanding, that expectation you've built without inviting me into the blueprint, these are not neutral. They're weights. And before I can equip you with new strategies, I must free your hands from what you won't let go of. That's why you felt the tension, because I'm not trying to take from you. I'm trying to prepare you. You can't grasp the tools of heaven while gripping the logic of earth. And I will not let you enter a war half-armored, relying on talent or memory. I love you too much for that. Kneeling isn't just a moment of prayer, it's the command center of heaven on earth. It's where I reveal what the enemy cannot predict. It's where I whisper instructions that bypass what looks impossible. It's where I remind you of who you really are when the noise of the crowd, the chaos of the circumstance, and the pressure of expectation have all tried to reshape your identity. On your knees, I reset your coordinates. I recalibrate your aim. I refill your confidence, not the shallow kind that flexes in public, but the rooted kind that doesn't flinch when warfare intensifies. That's why the enemy attacks your prayer life so aggressively. Because he knows you can't be deceived in battle when you first bowed in my presence. He knows that a kneeling warrior is an unstoppable force. So don't mistake this posture for passivity. When you kneel, kingdoms shift. When you kneel, angels are commissioned. When you kneel, strategies are unlocked that no textbook or experience could ever teach you. And don't wait for the fight to become unbearable before dropping to your knees. Begin each day there. Let surrender be your starting point, not your emergency exit. Invite me into your first breath, your first thought, your first word, and I will guide your hand through every unseen assault, through every delayed answer, through every conflict that tries to steal your stability. I do not train soldiers in panic. I train them in my presence. And your hands will know what to do in the heat of battle because they first learned how to release control in the quiet of surrender. There's no shortcut here. You can't bypass this training and still expect victory. The victories that last are forged in the place where pride is stripped, where excuses are buried, where dependence is learned not on yourself, but on me alone. So return to the ground. Make it familiar. Make it holy. Let tears fall there, let truth rise there, let every burden be exchanged for blueprints. This is where battles are won before they even begin. This is where fear is disarmed and courage is activated. This is where I train your hands not just to fight but to finish well. And I promise you this. If you start on your knees, you will rise in power. Not just any power but heaven's power. The kind that never runs dry, never bows to darkness, and never walks alone. Fatigue is cunning. It masquerades as a rational advisor, persuading you that vigilance is overrated and that trimming spiritual disciplines will save energy. Yet beneath that soft voice lurks a plot to strip you of the very strength you're trying to conserve. Hear me urgently. Weariness itself is not sin, but the shortcuts it recommends can become silent betrayals of your calling. You were designed for cycles of exertion and renewal, but renewal comes from my presence, not from bargaining with lethargy's half-truths. The moment you start telling yourself, I'll skip prayer just this once, or I'll overlook that small compromise because I'm too tired to confront it, you've unknowingly opened a side gate the enemy has been testing for weeks. Rest is holy only when it is anchored in me. Any other substitute, mindless scrolling, numb entertainment, gossip framed as venting may dull the ache but leaves your armor unfastened. Picture a soldier who dozes beside a smoldering campfire instead of retreating inside the fortified barracks. The faint warmth feels soothing, yet it casts long shadows that cloak approaching danger. In the same way, so-called harmless distractions can cradle you into a slumber where convictions loosen and discernment dims. Therefore, when fatigue presses your shoulders, run toward my refuge, not away from it. Trade your depleted striving for the oxygen of worship. Inhale promises, exhale pressures. Let my word be the pillow where your thoughts recline, because Scripture doesn't merely comfort, it recalibrates every cell of your resolve. Drink deeply of silence saturated with my nearness until your pulse syncs with heaven's steady cadence again. Only then will true stamina return, stamina that doesn't resent the next battle but meets it with clarified eyes and steady hands. Understand, Compromise always advertises itself as the quickest route to relief. But relief birthed from disobedience mutates into heavier burdens down the road. One overlooked boundary today becomes tomorrow's tangled snare. Reject the trap now. Choose Sabbath in my shadow where conscience stays clear and wisdom stands guard. I promise, the minutes you invest in sacred stillness will multiply back as focused hours, whereas the seconds you concede to convenience in will cost you priceless peace. Let me massage out the knots of worry from your spirit, but keep your sword within reach. Rest is a pit stop, not a resignation. If you will shut the door to cleverly cloaked concessions and lie down in the light of my approval, I will replenish you with courage fierce enough to confront subtle temptations when you rise. So the next time exhaustion whispers, just ease up on obedience, answer with swift redirection, wrap yourself in worship, saturate your mind with my perspective, and feel weariness dissolve without forfeiting a single inch of ground. This is how guardians recuperate, by abiding, not abandoning. My presence is the only bed where warriors wake sharper than before they slept. Come, lay your head here and stand up ready, never lulled by the counterfeit calm of compromise again. The hour is too late to guess your way through spiritual decisions, and the stakes are too high to operate off assumptions. What's being presented to you now and what's about to appear in the coming days won't come screaming, "I'm deception." No, the counterfeit will arrive clothed in familiarity. It will echo my language but twist my tone. It will mimic my miracles but lack my character. That's why I am calling you, not to sharpen your suspicion, but to deepen your intimacy with me, because the only reliable way to recognize what's false is to be fully immersed in what's true. You don't expose darkness by studying shadows. You expose it by flooding it with light. And I am the light that will never flicker, never adjust to trends, never accommodate lies to keep the peace. If you want clarity, come closer. If you want discernment, dwell deeper. This cannot be superficial. Your ability to identify spiritual fraud is directly tied to how saturated you are in my presence. Think of this clearly. When a banker is trained to detect fake currency, they do not begin by handling every variation of forgeries. They start by knowing the real thing, every texture, every detail, every watermark, so intimately that anything even slightly off feels wrong immediately. This is how I'm training you. I don't want you obsessed with chasing falsehoods. I want you obsessed with me. When you know my nature, my word, my rhythm, then every imposter, no matter how skillfully disguised, will trigger a quiet unrest in your spirit. That inner alarm isn't paranoia. It's a gift. It's me prompting you, nudging you to pause, to test, to question, not from a place of fear but from a place of spiritual maturity. And yes, you may have moments where others don't understand your resistance. I may say, "What's wrong with it?" Or "Everyone else is fine with this." But remember, your intimacy with me has made your discernment more sensitive. That's not a burden, it's a mantle. You not suppress the discomfort just to keep unity. Some agreements are not worth the cost. Peace built on pretending is not peace, it's a trap. I have not called you to live in suspicion, but I have called you to walk with eyes wide open. If you sense something off, do not override it to avoid awkwardness. You don't need to accuse or expose anyone, just quietly obey the nudge. Step back. Stay prayerful. I'll confirm what you need to know in time. The counterfeit often rushes you into quick decisions, while my spirit moves in peace and steadiness. Watch how pressure presents itself. Watch who insists on immediate allegiance. True things don't fear scrutiny. Real fruit holds up under examination. The counterfeit tries to dazzle you so you won't look too closely. But I am giving you eyes that see beyond surface. And here's the deeper truth. Most counterfeits don't come to steal obvious doctrines, they come to slightly alter the compass of your heart. They appeal to ego, to pain, to unresolved longing. That's why I'm asking you to let me search the unguarded rooms of your soul. Where there's hidden pride, deception finds a doorway. Where there's lingering bitterness, lies take root more easily. Where there's impatience, false shortcuts start looking appealing. So let me clean you out. Let me purify the spaces no one sees. The more you walk in internal truth, the more external lies will stand out without effort. Don't just read my word, absorb it until it redefines how you think. Don't just visit my presence, dwell until even your silence is filled with my voice. Your discernment isn't just about safety. It's about alignment. It's about not being delayed, not being deterred, not being distracted from assignments I've tailored to your life. If the enemy can't destroy you with sin, he'll try to delay you with counterfeit opportunities, counterfeit friendships, counterfeit revelations that flatter but don't sanctify. So listen again, intimacy with truth is your shield. Prioritize it over opinions. Prioritize it over urgency. Prioritize it even over visible results. And in doing so, you'll become unshakable, not because you've studied deception, but because you've anchored yourself in me, the way, the truth, and the life. Stay close. Stay clean. Stay clear. I'll keep your path lit and your spirit sharp, no matter how convincing the imitation may be. There is a dangerous transaction that takes place in silence, unspoken, subtle, yet spiritually binding. It's the quiet consent you give to fear when you dwell on worst-case scenarios as if they are already real. Worry doesn't begin with crisis, it begins with agreement. And each time you entertain anxious thoughts without confronting them with truth, you co-sign with a force I never authorized to lead your life. Worry will present itself as preparation, as wisdom, as just being realistic. But underneath its polished language, it's a thief. It robs clarity, delays obedience, and breeds spiritual paralysis. I'm not asking you to ignore responsibility. I'm asking you to reject the false belief that dwelling on the unknown somehow gives you control. It doesn't. It only drags your heart into storms that haven't even happened and may never happen. I am warning you, do not allow worry to become your internal language. Its vocabulary may sound responsible, but its origin is fear dressed up as caution. There are agreements made in the quiet hours of the night when you replay conversations, imagine disasters, and brace yourself for disappointments that don't even exist. You might think, I'm just being prepared, but what you're doing is rehearsing defeat before any battle has even begun. And whatever you rehearse, you eventually partner with. When you entertain fear, it multiplies. When you meditate on dread, it becomes more believable. I never created your imagination to build catastrophes. I created it to dream with me, to visualize promise, to prepare for joy. But if the soil of your mind is constantly seeded with anxiety, it will bear fruit of hesitation, indecision, and emotional exhaustion. You weren't made to carry that weight. That's why it feels so heavy. That's why your shoulders ache when you lie down. That's why sleep escapes you even when your body is still. The unrest is not physical, it's spiritual. It's the burden of a contract you were never meant to sign. I want you to understand this with urgency. You do not need to partner with every thought that visits your mind. Not every emotion is a prophecy. Not every fear is a warning. Some are simply distractions designed to drain your spiritual reserves before the real assignment arrives. That's why I am calling you to cancel every secret agreement with fear, revoke the access it has had to your reasoning, your mood, your pace. Stop planning your life around what you dread. Begin planning it around what I've promised. Every time worry speaks, answer it. Don't let it narrate your day unchallenged. Say out loud, I will not agree with this fear. Speak my word like a legal document. He keeps in perfect peace those whose minds are stayed on him. Let heaven and hell hear your no. Let your spirit be reminded of the boundaries you're reestablishing. Joy is not a luxury for when things are going perfectly. It is a weapon that wages war against the spirit of fear. And every time you choose joy over panic, peace over pressure, praise over paralysis, you reclaim ground the enemy has slowly tried to claim through subtle worry. This is how you fight back, not with more stress, but with stubborn trust. Not with more effort, but with deeper surrender. It's not about pretending problems don't exist. It's about refusing to allow them to control your direction. When I said, do not worry about tomorrow, I didn't mean ignore your responsibilities, I meant stop giving your future to a master who cannot bless it. I am here today to offer you a new agreement, one built on my faithfulness, not on fear's forecast. Sign with your faith. Co-author your peace with my promises. Draft a new mental routine that begins with, God is for me, and ends with, His goodness is chasing me. Let that be your meditation. Let that be your foundation. Tear up the old contracts, those internal vows that said, I'll always be anxious, or this is just how I am. Oh, beloved, that's not how you were designed. You were built to carry peace like a flame, not fear like a chain. So break every silent deal with worry. Burn the pages, break the handshake, revoke the terms, and step boldly into the freedom that comes when you stop living beneath the weight of what was never yours to carry. Hear me swiftly, for this safeguard cannot wait. You are stepping into territories where recognition will chase you, applause will tempt you, and progress will whisper that you've earned the right to relax your guard. At that very intersection, pride positions a hidden archer, stringing compliments into barbed shafts designed to pierce perception and distort identity. Humility is not shyness, nor self-deprecation, nor a timid reluctance to acknowledge my gifts in you. Humility is lucid alignment with truth, a steady awareness that every breath, talent, breakthrough, and influence is borrowed from my endless reservoir. When that awareness crowns your thought life, fiery darts coated in ego cannot penetrate. But if humility slips, if you begin to absorb admiration like oxygen rather than reflect it as light, poison seeps beneath the visor, numbing discernment before you realize you've been struck. I'm alerting you now because opportunities for expansion are arriving rapidly, each accompanied by voices eager to brand you as the architect of your own ascent. Resist that narrative with urgency. Deflect praise upward like polished metal casting sunlight skyward. Acknowledge affirmation graciously, then immediately pivot gratitude toward me. That reflex forms an invisible alloy around your mind, too slick for vanity to grip. Why is this crucial? Because pride reshapes the battlefield. It invites combat. You were never meant to fight rivalries, comparisons, relentless self-promotion, draining focus from the true assignment. It twists constructive feedback into personal insult, converts collaboration into competition, and disguises stagnation as self-sufficiency. Soon the helm that once guarded your vision becomes a mirror reflecting only yourself, and while you admire the reflection, the enemy advances unchecked. I refuse to see you ambushed by admiration's counterfeit comfort. Therefore cultivate habits that keep the helmet firmly fastened. Daily celebrate unseen laborers who paved your path. Deliberately seek counsel from those unafraid to challenge you. Rehearse dependence by thanking me for mundane provisions as earnestly as for public victories. Humility also listens, really listens, without rehearsing a rebuttal. When correction arrives, do not dodge, let it climb harmlessly off your helmet, then examine it. If it's valid, adapt quickly. If it's not, release it without resentment. Either response strengthens protection. Understand, too, that humility doesn't negate boldness, it amplifies it. A warrior certain that success is sovereignly supplied can charge forward unburdened by the need to prove worth. Pride, conversely, drags a heavy cloak of self-justification, slowing every stride. That's why my greatest champions bowed first. Moses faced Pharaoh only after removing sandals before me. David's crown followed countless nights of solitary psalms. Esther's favor bloomed after 3 days of hidden fasting. Each victory was woven through surrender, not swagger. Their humility did not shrink their courage, it fueled clarity, ensuring every triumph pointed nations to my glory instead of entrenching personal legacy. This is the blueprint I hand you now. Wear it like tempered steel. Practical vigilance. When accolades accumulate, schedule secret moments of serving where no cameras exist. Clean a forgotten corner, fund a need anonymously, pray for someone who can offer nothing in return. Acts of unseen generosity polish the helmet's surface, wiping away fingerprints of ego. Likewise, maintain laughter at yourself. Healthy humor punctures the balloon of self-importance before it ascends. Humility also remembers origins. Revisit journals, photographs, testimonies of times I rescued you from scarcity, obscurity, confusion. Those memories anchor perspective, reminding your soul that peaks are merely higher platforms for gratitude, not pedestals of entitlement. Finally, recognize counterfeit humility, which parades self-disdain to fish for reassurance. True lowliness doesn't beg for attention. It quietly channels attention to me. If you catch yourself downplaying my gifts hoping others will contradict you with praise, tighten the strap of sincerity. Speak truth plainly. God enabled this and let that stand. The kingdom advances through authentic vessels, not through false modesty masking pride's thirst. So, beloved, secure the helmet. Let humility guard your thinking like seasoned sentries on midnight watch. With it in place, you'll stride through applauding crowds unaffected, navigate criticism unshaken, steward expansion without corrosion, and finish assignments crowned with honor that cannot rust because it was never about elevating you, but about revealing me through you, untainted, unstoppable, untouchable by pride's poisoned arrows. You sensed it already, the widening gap between the life I'm calling you into and the choices many around you are making. What once felt like shared momentum now feels like a quiet divergence, a spiritual fork where your hunger for more of me is met with silence or even subtle resistance. This is not a detour. This is the path I've carved specifically for you. And yes, it's narrowing. Not to restrict you, but to refine you. The distractions that once followed at a distance will now demand your attention more aggressively, hoping you'll take a broader, more convenient way. But hear me, those wide roads are shortcuts to delay. They may look smooth, paved with logic and popular approval, but they lead to spiritual erosion. I'm calling you deeper. And deeper almost always means narrower. Not everyone will understand. Not everyone will stay beside you. But don't fear the isolation of the narrow path, for I have walked every inch before you. My footsteps have left depressions in the soil, and your spirit will know where to step if you slow down and trust me to guide, not with grand signs, but with quiet impressions that echo louder than noise. You're not being punished by the narrowing. You're being purified. You're being entrusted with more. That's why some things that others can entertain, you can't anymore. That's why your spirit grows restless when you ignore my nudge to disconnect from distractions. The path is narrowing because you're carrying something sacred now. Sacred things cannot be handled with casual hands. And you, beloved, are carrying fire, not a flicker of emotion, but a flame of purpose. That fire cannot survive in crowded places that lack conviction. So I will gently lead you away from the familiar, not because it was bad, but because it's not enough for where I'm taking you. You may look around and see others running freely with fewer restrictions, wondering why their pace seems faster. But remember, speed is not always the evidence of direction. Some run wide and fast but miss the turn entirely. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are walking exactly as you should, in step with a Savior who measured this terrain before time began. There is safety in this path. There are moments of stillness that others never get to experience because they never stayed long enough to notice me in the silence. I'm not only at the finish line, I'm beside you now. When the world accelerates and clamors for your attention, let your stillness be your strength. As where my voice gets loudest on the path too narrow for distraction to walk alongside, there will be choices that test your loyalty to me. Moments where what is right will not be what is easy. Conversations where saying less will protect your peace. Invitations you will have to decline, not because you're better, but because your spirit is being guarded. That's what the narrowing does. It strips away the unnecessary so the essential can be seen. And what's essential now is my voice, my timing, my instruction. These are your compass points. And though the road ahead may twist unexpectedly, know this: I've been here before. Every twist, every incline, every quiet shadow, I've gone ahead and marked it with my presence. My footsteps are already there, waiting for yours to fit inside them. You won't get lost. You won't fall behind. You won't fail, not if you keep your eyes on me, not if you keep choosing what aligns with my spirit over what aligns with your comfort. The narrow path is not the lonely path, it is the precise one. It's where the distractions thin and clarity thickens. It's where your spiritual reflexes are sharpened, your discernment is heightened, and your confidence is no longer tied to applause, but anchored in obedience. And as you walk it, others will notice not your speed, but your steadiness, not your volume, but your vision. And though few may follow at first, some will eventually be drawn to the peace that surrounds you like a fragrance. That peace is the proof that even when the path narrows, it leads to life. The proof that when the way gets high, my grace gets wider. To take the next step, follow where the trail constricts. Let my footsteps lead you through places others bypassed. I'm not calling you to the crowded. I'm calling you to the consecrated. And there, you'll find what no wide road can ever offer, me, uninterrupted, at every turn. The unseen realm surrounding you is far from passive. It is a living network of assignments, watchmen, and reinforcements dispatched on the frequency of your trust in me. When your confidence dims to a trembling ember, I do not accuse you, I deploy backup. I commission messengers of fire, beings who move faster than despair, who carry radiant shields to block arrows of unbelief before they find your heart. They stand over your nights whispering scriptures you nearly forgot, nudging your dreams with images of victory you haven't yet tasted, stirring your morning instincts to open the Word instead of scrolling a screen that splashes headlines of hopelessness. Yet understand this principle. Angelic presence intensifies where human faith refuses to die. A single spark of belief is enough authority for one sentinel. But when you fan that spark through worship when circumstances howl, through gratitude whispered over unanswered prayers, myriads are summoned. They gather like a vast constellation, each torch amplifying the next until the atmosphere blazes brighter than the fear that threatened to snuff you out. Your perseverance, then, is not private resilience alone. It is logistical command. Every declaration of trust is a flare shot into spiritual skies, signaling, supply lines open here. Angels respond information, bringing strategies wrapped in peace, solutions disguised as chance encounters, fresh wind for lungs weary of contending. The enemy knows this pattern. That is why discouragement's first tactic is isolation, convincing you your struggle is solitary, convincing you nobody notices the dim glow of your hope. But I notice. I engineer swift reinforcements the moment I detect even a shiver of reliance on my name. Do not misinterpret extended silence as absence. During those hushed intervals, patrols are actually fortifying, welding breaches in your perimeter, routing blessings around obstacles you have not yet discerned. Your efficiency is governed by covenant, not by your flawless performance. Still, your cooperation accelerates their impact. Every time you refuse cynicism's invitation, the torches they carry blaze hotter, illuminating shortcuts through confusion you would never find by intellect alone. So guard that wick. Shield it from envy's drafts, from constant complaints, from the steady drizzle of negativity that seeps through casual conversations. Feed it scriptures like oil. Sing over it, yes. Even off-key hymns muttered in traffic become accelerant. Speak again what I told you years ago as if hearing it for the first time. The more you rehearse promise, the more lumens explode in realms you cannot yet see, and angels step closer, shoulder to shoulder, until your once lonely ember becomes a bonfire drawing others out of darkness. You need not worry about commanding them. Your assignment is to believe. Heaven handles the dispatch details. Obedience to hope is your enlistment. But realize, when you surrender to despair, you effectively issue a stand-down order. The torch is dim, not because I revoke their mission, but because belief is the atmosphere they breathe. Rekindle, and they return instant, relentless, unstoppable. Picture a night watch on ancient ramparts. Lanterns dot the wall, signaling life inside the fortress. If lanterns fail, invading forces presume an easy breach. Your faith flame is that lantern. Keep it visible. Let it declare to demonic scouts, this heart still trusts, this mind still worships, this home still belongs to the King. Patrols will march the parapets, swords drawn, songs of deliverance vibrating through stone until tremors of glory rattle the plans arrayed against you. And when dawn manifests in the natural, breakthrough you can taste, answers you can document. Do not lower vigilance. Celebrate by stoking flame higher. Victories attract new levels of assignment, and angels who escorted you through valley nights now usher you onto mountain outposts where your light can guide many. Each stage requires the same principle: faith first, reinforcements next, glory always. Keep burning, beloved. There is no ceiling to the brightness possible when human trust meets heavenly patrols armed with eternal fire. Every sentence you speak is a stone either forming shelter or flinging shrapnel. What proceeds from your mouth does not merely vanish into air. It builds or breaks, gathers or scatters, heals or infects. This is why I am calling you, now more than ever, to treat your speech as sacred territory. You may not realize it yet, but you carry the authority to shape entire atmospheres with a few simple phrases. Conversations are not neutral. They are spiritual construction zones. And your voice is not casual background noise, it is a blueprint being drawn in real time. When you speak in alignment with my truth, your words become walls of protection around weary souls. They open windows for light to flood dark minds. They lay foundations of peace where chaos had been swatting unnoticed for years. But when your words echo irritation, repeat unverified assumptions, or lean into subtle mockery disguised as honesty, you allow cracks to form in structures I am trying to build. What begins as just venting becomes a draft that lets in confusion, division, and insecurity. I know you've been surrounded by voices that treat slander like currency, trading it for influence, attention, or fleeting connections. I know the temptation to join in when gossip feels like the common language in the room. But I didn't call you to common, I called you to consecrated. I didn't appoint you to echo what the world is saying, I appointed you to carry my tone, even when it costs you approval. And yes, it may cost you. There will be moments when your silence is mocked, times when you remove yourself from conversations that others find entertaining. But I assure you, every withdrawal from poisonous dialogue is a deposit into spiritual clarity. You do not realize how much discernment is lost through careless speech. Every rumor passed along, every jab wrapped in sarcasm, every exaggerated complaint, it depletes your ability to sense me clearly. But when you choose speech that aligns with heaven, your hearing sharpens, your inner peace deepens, and your environment begins to shift even if no one around you acknowledges it. Begin to see yourself as a verbal sanctuary builder. Ask yourself before every comment, will this add weight to someone's shoulders or lift it? Will this create safety in the room or tension? Will this remind them of truth or reinforce lies they are already battling? If it won't build, don't speak it. And if it needs to be said, then say it with grace wrapped in clarity, carried by compassion. You don't have to sugarcoat conviction, but you must make sure it's planted in love, not in pride. Harsh truth spoken from an unhealed heart does more damage than silence. But gentle truth, delivered with purity, can transform even the most defensive spirit. And when you consistently speak life, people will begin to run to your voice not because it flatters them, but because they know it shelters them. You will become a refuge with legs, a moving embassy of my presence, a resting place for tired souls. This doesn't mean you will never correct, never confront, never speak firmly. It means even your correction will restore instead of destroy. Even your confrontation will come with hope instead of shame. That's the difference between those who tear down and those who build. Anyone can criticize, but only those with my spirit can see ruin and still speak vision. I'm asking you to do that. To look at brokenness and speak what could be, not just what is. To look at your family, your workplace, your church, your community, and instead of repeating what's wrong, begin speaking what aligns with my intentions. Speak peace where there's tension. Speak unity where there's division. Speak purpose where there's apathy. This is how you build a refuge with your words. Don't underestimate the power of consistent encouragement. Don't minimize what happens when you bless someone to their face or defend them behind their back. Heaven takes notice. Demons take flight. The ground beneath your feet begins to change. So choose your words with reverence, as though every syllable shapes the world around you, because it does. And when you forget, come back to me. Let me cleanse your tongue again, like I did for Isaiah. Let me recalibrate your tone, soften your edges, and fill you with the kind of words that last longer than arguments and echo louder than rumors. For you are not just a speaker, you are a builder. And with every heaven-aligned word, you are shaping spaces that carry my presence, protect my people, and prepare hearts for the miracles I am about to release. Each drop that escaped your eyes in secret, every silent sob muffled into pillows, each moment you break mid-sentence because emotions overwhelm, these are not signs of weakness. They are sacred offerings, collected by heaven like precious seed. You may feel as though you're unraveling in those moments, but in my kingdom, what feels like breaking is often planting. I don't just count your tears, I invest them. I turn them into boldness. I transform them into fuel. But that only happens when you bring them to me instead of hiding them behind the veil of toughness or shame. You were never meant to carry sorrow in silence. You were created to release it in my presence so that I can exchange it for strength no storm can unravel. I want you to know that even the tears you didn't understand, the ones you couldn't explain to yourself, let alone others, were not wasted. Each one was a cry your spirit spoke when your words fell short. And I understood them all. When you weep before me, you do not dissolve, you deepen. Like roots that grow downward in darkness to anchor trees against hurricanes, your soul digs further into me when grief pours from your heart. But the world will try to shame your emotion, to call your crying dramatic, or label your tears weakness. That's because the world doesn't understand the kind of strength I build from surrender. I do not despise a broken heart, I dwell in it. I draw close to the crushed. I pitch my tent near the emotionally overwhelmed. And in those places, where the rawest parts of you are laid bare, I perform my most delicate surgeries. I pull out the lies that grief tried to plant. I stitch up wounds that memory kept reopening. I whisper truth until it chokes out despair. And as you rise from those moments, though your eyes may still be red, your spirit emerges steadier, stronger, surer of who I am. There is a mystery in tears surrendered to me. They don't just dry up, they multiply into courage you didn't know you were capable of. You'll find yourself facing the very things that used to paralyze you. You'll walk into rooms that once triggered silence and speak boldly. You'll stand in front of people who once rejected you and no longer need their approval to breathe freely. That is not accidental. That is the harvest of your tears. Watered by pain, grown through worship, nourished by the decision to keep coming back to me when all you wanted was to shut down. I have seen every time you showed up in prayer when you felt numb. I've seen the tremble in your voice when you said my name, not to perform, but simply to survive. And I tell you now, none of it was unnoticed. You see, in the realm of heaven, your tears have voices. They speak on your behalf. They say what your strength cannot. They unlock places in your heart you didn't realize needed tending. So do not apologize for them. Do not rush to wipe them away as if they disqualify your authority. They authenticate it. They prove your softness has not been consumed by bitterness. They show me that you are still tender enough to receive more. And I pour into open vessels, not closed ones. I can do more with 5 tears surrendered in honesty than with 1,000 declarations made in pride. So if the tears come, let them. But direct them toward me. Let them fall into my hands, not into empty spaces where regret tries to collect them. And know this, I am bottling every tear. I am not just storing them, I'm transforming them into testimonies, into breakthroughs, into bold prayers that echo in rooms where you once whispered fears, into dreams that you thought were dead but are now soaking in the very water your sorrow produced. So the next time you feel them rising, do not resist. Do not retreat. Let them flow, and hand them to me. I will turn them into courage that will not only sustain you, but inspire others. Because courage born in weeping speaks louder than strength manufactured through performance. And your tears, my beloved, are not the end of your story. They are the beginning of miracles rooted in a kind of faith that hell cannot imitate and heaven cannot ignore. There is a rhythm embedded into your calling, a sacred cadence that governs when to rise, when to wait, when to speak, when to hold your breath. But too often, in the rush of eagerness or the ache of delay, you are tempted to step outside that rhythm, to sprint ahead because you're tired of waiting, or to shrink back because you're afraid of disappointment. Yet I tell you now with urgency, one moment too early can cost years of realignment. Not because I won't restore, but because what I build is designed for fullness, not fragments. You must learn to move with me, not around me. Trust that my timing isn't slow, it's surgical. I'm not withholding because you're unworthy. I'm refining so you can hold what I'm preparing without it crushing you. You don't need to be anxious about what's next. You need to be anchored in what I've already said. When I declared the promise over you, it wasn't attached to a deadline, it was attached to obedience. And obedience includes pacing. If you listen closely, you will begin to feel it, not in the noise of your surroundings, but in the subtle pulse of my spirit within you. That unexplainable peace that settles when you pause instead of push. That's not hesitation, it's direction. That heaviness you feel when you try to force what isn't ready. That's not failure, it's redirection. I have encoded my wisdom into the delay. And if you stay close, you'll begin to discern that not every closed door is opposition, some are protection. Some are me shielding you from rooms that your character isn't ready to occupy yet. The world will not understand this. It celebrates fast growth, fast fame, fast results. But quick does not equal divine. I'm not interested in giving you a spotlight, I'm interested in giving you sustainability. I'm building something in you that won't collapse when the applause fades or when trials intensify. That's why you've been walking through seasons that seem slow. It's why you've watched others pass you, wondering if you were forgotten. You weren't. You were being preserved. Like fine wine hidden in darkness. Like roots digging deep before branches break the surface. I am establishing you, not just promoting you. And when it's time to move, there will be no striving. You won't have to manipulate, beg, or chase. Doors will open because I touch them, not because you force them. So how do you wait? Well, not by doing nothing, but by doing what I've already assigned. The enemy wants to trick you into believing that waiting is wasting. That lie breeds restlessness, and restlessness gives birth to premature choices that look right but feel wrong. But when you stay faithful with what's in front of you, even if it seems small, you're proving to heaven that you can steward the weight of what's ahead. And when I see that posture in you, faithfulness without fanfare, obedience without outcomes, I accelerate what's coming. Because now your foundation can hold it. Let me train your ears to hear the tick of my timing. It doesn't sound like the world's clocks. It moves slower, but strikes deeper. It doesn't count seconds, it counts surrender. It measures not how fast you move, but how aligned you are with my heartbeat. And when that alignment is set, timing becomes an ally, not an obstacle. Suddenly, what once felt like delay will reveal itself as divine choreography. You'll look back and see how every not yet was really a just wait. I'm doing something bigger than you imagined. This is not the moment to panic. This is not the moment to leap blindly just to escape the stillness. This is the moment to lean into me more tightly, to become so sensitive to my voice that when I whisper go, you'll sprint without hesitation, and when I whisper pause, you'll smile and stay still, knowing something greater is still unfolding beneath the surface. Timing is not just about arrival, it's about readiness. And I'm making you ready, not just for the promise, but for the pressure that comes with it. So trust the pace. Trust the silence. Trust the ticks between now and next. I'm not delaying you, I'm developing you. And when it's time, everything will shift without strain. Because in my timing, grace meets you at the gate, and what once felt far becomes yours in a breath. Pause and replay the last 24 hours. The traffic light that turned green at the exact moment you prayed for speed. The friend who texted encouragement without knowing what burden pressed your chest. The bill paid by an unexpected refund. the sudden calm that replaced a spiraling thought before it poisoned your words. Each of these tiny deliverances was me intervening in real time, weaving thin strokes of mercy into the canvas of an ordinary day. Yet if you race past them, dismissing them as coincidence or luck, you dull the instrument I gave you to discern my whisper. Thanksgiving is not a courtesy, it is a tuning fork. Every time you notice a seemingly minor rescue and bless me for it aloud, the spiritual acoustics around you adjust, filtering out static so my future directions arrive in crisp focus. Think of it as calibrating a radio, tiny turns of the dial, slight acknowledgments of favor. Reduce the hiss until the broadcast emerges clearly, so clearly that when I nudge you left instead of right, you obey without second-guessing because you have practiced recognizing my subtle fingerprints all day long. Too many wait to celebrate until the earth shakes or seas split, but such spectacles are infrequent by design. Daily guidance is carried on gentler currents, and only hearts trained in continual appreciation can catch those breezes. When gratitude is neglected, the senses grow coarse. Miracles must shout to be noticed, and even then suspicion often muffles their testimony. But when you choose to exalt a small reprieve, a parking space, a gentle sunrise after a violent night, your spirit stretches toward heaven like a sunflower tracking light, its receptors multiplying so that tomorrow you perceive the faintest glow of my counsel before darkness fully settles. Cultivating this disposition does not require theatrics. A whispered thank you in the hallway, a mid-task pause to smile skyward, a journal line that notes, "He protected me again." These are bricks in a listening tower. Stack them persistently, and soon you will stand taller than confusion. Understand, celebration doesn't merely record what happened, it rehearses who I am. You affirm my nature as rescuer, thereby dismantling the enemy's narrative that you are abandoned to randomness. The devil exploits forgetfulness. He cannot erase my interventions, but he can tempt you to overlook them, starving your confidence for future battles. Contrarily, when you recount a minor aid, how a recipe stretched to feed unexpected guests, or how a meeting canceled at the precise instant exhaustion threatened, you deposit evidence into the courtroom of your mind. Then, when adversity calls another trial, the docket overflows with precedent. I delivered before. I will again. Anxiety's arguments lose credibility, and faith's voice grows authoritative. Soon your inner dialogue shifts from "will he?" to "watch him." Celebration is also contagious. Your attestations become seed for someone else's wilderness. Imagine a coworker overhearing you credit me for a smooth commute. They may scoff outwardly, yet inwardly a spark lands on dry timber. Later, when they face gridlock or a frightening diagnosis, the memory of your simple praise may guide their own first attempt at trust. In this way, small thanksgiving propels large evangelism, not through polished sermons but through lived evidence of a near God. Thus, every micro-miracle you herald widens my influence in unseen circles. Do not worry that constant acknowledgement will slow productivity. Slowness is not the same as stillness. Pausing to recognize grace actually redeems minutes you would have lost to frustration. Gratitude lubricates mental gears. It prevents the grinding fatigue of unbroken striving. With each recognition, cortisol subsides, creativity surges, solutions surface. Where grumbling corrodes, gladness conserves internal resources for kingdom exploits yet to be revealed. Therefore, develop rituals. Before bed, replay the day backward, naming mercies from dusk to dawn. At each meal, recall provision. Beyond the plate, an apology received, an error averted. Teach your children or friends to share heart sightings of goodness so a culture of attentive joy thrives in your home. When disappointment strikes, counterpunch by recalling 3 prior rescues. Let memory topple mood. Soon, the habit becomes reflex and the reflex becomes revelation. Your ears, now primed by continuous honor, will detect my next assignment in nuances: a passing phrase, a scripture fragment, a sudden idea while others await thunder. Celebrating small rescues is not spiritual naivete. It is strategic reconnaissance. It scouts the landscape for hints of my movement, mapping supply lines for the conflict ahead. Refuse the cynical voice that labels this childish. In my economy, Children who shout thank you for simple bread witness loaves multiply for multitudes. So lift even the tiniest victory like a torch. Let its glow refine the delicate instruments of perception inside you. So when the next instruction arrives quiet as footfall on moss, you will rise without delay, already convinced that the God of subtle salvations is guiding every step. There's something the enemy hopes you never realize. That unforgiveness is not just a personal matter, it's a spiritual breach. It begins as an injury, perhaps even a justifiable one. A betrayal, a broken promise, a careless word that sliced deeper than the speaker will ever know. You carry it because it hurt, and yes, I saw it. I was there. But what you don't see, what I must now reveal, is how holding onto that wound creates an opening for poison to flow. Not all at once, but drop by drop. It begins to seep into places it was never meant to reach. Your creativity becomes cloudy. Your joy feels harder to access. Your vision loses sharpness. Even your prayers, once bold and free, start to feel weighty, like they're dragging an invisible chain. That's the infection of bitterness, and it spreads silently through the bloodstream of your destiny until forgiveness is released like medicine. That's why I say forgive quickly, not because I'm dismissing your pain, but because I'm protecting your purpose. Delayed forgiveness is an open door the enemy exploits skillfully. He doesn't need to destroy you outright if he can just distort you slowly enough that your once clear calling feels distant, unreachable, or strangely unimportant. He knows that a heart cluttered with offense is a heart less willing to obey, less willing to love, less willing to trust me again. That's why he keeps the offense fresh in your memory, replaying it like a highlight reel, amplifying every flaw, making the person who wronged you larger than life, until they occupy more space in your thoughts than I do. And when that happens, your spiritual immune system weakens. You stop hearing my voice with clarity. You stop stepping forward with boldness. And even the new things I'm trying to give you are held at arm's length because unforgiveness teaches you to brace for more hurt, even from me. But there is another way. A faster-free way. Not through denial, not through pretending it didn't matter, but through honest, wholehearted release. Forgiveness doesn't say what they did was okay. It says, I refuse to carry it anymore. It says, I'm handing this wound to the only one who can heal it completely. And I don't just heal, I redeem. I use the broken pieces as building blocks for something far stronger than you imagined. The pain you've endured does not disqualify you. It becomes soil for miracles if you don't keep clutching the shards. Let me take them. Let me remove the infection before it corrupts your capacity to dream, love, and lead. Quick forgiveness does not mean shallow forgiveness. It means decisive action. It means you don't wait until you feel like it, you choose it, and then let your emotions catch up. Because sometimes your heart follows your obedience. Start small if you must. Speak their name without venom. Pray blessing over them even when you still feel the sting. That act alone starves bitterness and waters grace. And yes, it may feel like a fight at first. Forgiveness often is. But you're not doing it alone. I'm in that battle with you. Every time you take a step toward release, I meet you with more strength. I comfort where it still hurts. I defend you where you feel vulnerable. And in the process, I restore what unforgiveness tried to steal. You'll begin to notice the difference almost immediately. Your thoughts will lighten. Your prayers will deepen. Your decisions will feel less clouded. You'll dream again, not just for yourself, but even for the ones who hurt you. That's how you know you're free, when you can bless those who wounded you and still believe in a future untouched by their actions. That kind of freedom terrifies the enemy. He knows a forgiven person is an unstoppable person because they carry no burdens that aren't surrendered, no memories too toxic for grace to touch, no delays caused by internal resistance. They move fluidly with me. And that's where I'm leading you now. So don't delay. Don't rehearse the pain one more time hoping it will make more sense. Some things won't be fair on earth, but they will be handled by heaven. Your job is to release. To forgive quickly, not lightly. To close the wound so it doesn't fester. To take back your freedom and let joy return unfiltered, You were not designed to carry this into tomorrow. Forgiveness is not just for them, it's for your future. And that future begins the moment you let go. There is a currency in my kingdom that never loses value, though it circulates unnoticed by headlines. Quiet benevolence. Acts so small they slip beneath applause, anonymously paying a stranger's fare, sending a note that only 2 eyes will read, choosing restraint when sarcasm could have tasted sweet. Each deed sinks like seed into unseen soil. The ground may appear barren afterward, and cynicism will taunt, what good did that do? Yet beneath the surface, roots are weaving a canopy of favor timed for future storms you cannot predict. Understand the strategy. Hell monitors public broadcasts, but it struggles to trace kindness conducted under cover of humility. When you give without seeking credit, you encrypt the transaction. The enemy cannot intercept blessings he cannot locate. Meanwhile, I schedule germination. Weeks, months, even years from now, on a day when accusations gather like thunderclouds, your hidden harvest will rise as unexpected shelter and advocate in a boardroom you never knew remembered your generosity. A door opened by someone whose burden you once lightened, a provision transferred through channels you could never engineer. It will feel sudden, but heaven's ledgers show it was accruing interest since the moment you released that kindness in secret. Do not underestimate the multiplied impact of motives purified from applause. Public charity earns earthly praise, which fades as quickly as it's spoken. Secret kindness stores compound grace in realms where moth and rust hold no sway. And let me clarify, secrecy is not about cloaking virtue in prideful mystique. It is about freeing compassion from the need to be seen, so that love flows unfiltered by ego. The less attention you demand, the purer the stream, and the more potent its eventual return. Think of Naaman, who expected grand gestures yet found healing through humble obedience. Think of the widow who dropped 2 coins unheard by the crowd but heard by heaven. In both cases, the miracle hinged not on volume but on sincerity. So, when an opportunity for discreet goodness arises, take it swiftly. Don't wait for perfect conditions, for extra funds, for certain acknowledgement. The soil is ready now, and hesitation allows weeds of self-justification to choke the impulse. You ask, how will I know the seed is significant if no one affirms it? I answer, by the peace that settles after giving. If inner stillness replaces the itch for recognition, you have sown well. If joy bubbles quietly while no audience claps, you have aligned with my heartbeat. That resonance is confirmation enough. Let others chase visibility. You chase impact. Remember, I who see in secret will reward in ways publicity could never engineer. And those rewards are not merely material, they include resilience against discouragement, insight during confusion, courage under scrutiny. Harvest looks different for each field, but it always arrives when protection or provision is most critical. You will stand amazed, realizing the cloak shielding you was woven from deeds you nearly forgot. Guard your posture, though. The temptation will come to announce what was meant to remain hidden, especially when you feel overlooked elsewhere. Talents in such moments is strength. You honor the sacred transaction by letting me unveil it in my timing. Each time you resist the urge to broadcast, the seed sinks deeper, anchoring roots that will grip the soil against future gales. Practice this lifestyle until generosity becomes reflex, until your left hand truly forgets the right hand's giving. Train your household likewise. Teach children to serve anonymous needs. Teach friends to celebrate unseen victories. Create a culture where gratitude flows upward to me rather than sideways toward commendation. Soon you will notice something subtle yet profound. Environments shift around secret sowers. Workplaces brighten without logical cause. Families find conversations gentler. Even neighborhoods experience reduced strife, because kindness planted in hidden corners sends ripples wider than intention. It is spiritual physics. Every selfless action displaces a measure of darkness. So keep scattering seed coins, compliments, prayers, no eye records. Your Father measures each particle, mapping future rescue routes that will spring like hidden wells when desert heat seems unbearable. And on that day, standing beneath the shade of trees you once planted unseen, you will grasp the power of covert compassion. It not only blesses recipients, it builds a fortress of favor around the giver. So now, beloved, your secret fields are already trembling with the promise of timely harvest. There is a difference between remembering and reliving, between learning from what broke you and allowing it to re-break you in endless cycles of reflection. I have seen you revisit the same ache again and again, not because you enjoy the sorrow, but because you're afraid if you walk too far away from the wound, you'll forget what it taught you. But listen to me carefully. I never asked you to pitch your tent in a valley of trauma. I asked you to pass through. Yes, reflect. Yes, acknowledge. Yes, extract the insight. But do not stay. Do not rehearse the betrayal so often that it becomes your identity. Do not clutch the lesson so tightly that you mistake it for the whole truth. Your pain may have shaped part of your path, but it was never meant to become the voice that leads you. That place where you were wronged, where you failed, where the disappointment hit you hardest, that place is not your home. I bring beauty from ashes, but I do not need you to live among the ashes for the transformation to work. Too many of my children remain emotionally anchored to old wounds, revisiting every detail, obsessively trying to make sense of what hurt them. And I understand that urge. I know how your heart seeks closure, how your mind tries to protect you by gathering every broken fragment and examining it from every angle. But wisdom is not found in overanalyzing the pain, it's found in bringing the pain to me, asking what you were meant to learn, and then letting me breathe fresh life into the space it occupied. That's where true wisdom lives, in forward motion, in the courage to continue with clarity, not chains. So ask me what to carry, and I will show you. I will help you discern which memories contain treasure, and which ones were just echoes meant to fade after they served their moment. The danger of camping in the ruins is that, over time, they begin to feel like protection. You memorize the architecture of old pain so well that you forget what freedom even looks like. But child, I did not rescue you to watch you rebuild walls from rubble. I called you out so that you could become a builder of new places, places of healing, of joy, of strength that ripples into others. If you keep rehearsing what went wrong, you will miss what is going right. I am doing things now that require your full presence. I am aligning relationships, opening doors, planting seeds, but if your focus remains tethered to what was lost, you'll trample new growth while looking for pieces of what I've already buried. Yes, there's wisdom in pain, but it must be processed through my presence. Otherwise, it becomes a lens of distortion. It will cause you to interpret current blessings with suspicion. It will convince you that every good thing must come with a cost, that every peaceful moment is a setup for another storm, that every new opportunity is bait for fresh disappointment. This is not discernment, it's damage, and I want to heal it. But you must first choose to step away from the ruins, to stop building a life around what hurt you. Let me be your guide through memory. Let me filter what should stay and what should go. Let me redeem the experience without requiring you to stay stuck in it. I gave you the strength to survive what you never thought you'd get through. That alone proves your resilience. But now I want to give you more than survival. I want to give you clarity, purpose, legacy. You're not just someone who endured. You're someone who was transformed. And transformation doesn't dwell in the shadows of the past. It moves forward with dignity, even if the past still echoes sometimes. When you feel it trying to call you back, don't ignore it, but don't sit in it either. Listen for what is useful, then keep walking. Walking with grace. Walking with peace. Walking with a new identity that says, I've been through fire, but I'm not made of ash. So, harvest what is worth keeping. Let go of what serves no more purpose, and refuse to build your future upon ruins. I have a new foundation prepared, one made of hope, wisdom, and divine timing. Leave the campsite. Let the embers die. A new dawn is breaking, and it has nothing to do with the wreckage. It has everything to do with what's being rebuilt right now, in you. Where you dwell physically, emotionally, and spiritually affects what you become. Just as seeds planted in toxic soil cannot yield healthy fruit, your soul cannot thrive in an atmosphere that drains, distracts, or distorts your calling. What you allow around you will eventually influence what flows out of you. That's why I urge you now with urgency. Be intentional about your environment. This includes your conversations, your media, your relationships, even your thoughts. Every word you entertain neither waters your courage or withers your resolve. Every voice you listen to either affirms my truth or echoes the enemy's lies. I'm not calling you to paranoia but to discernment. If you treat your atmosphere casually, you risk your strength being stolen subtly. You must understand, atmospheres are spiritual breeding grounds. Peace doesn't flourish where gossip pollutes the air. Vision doesn't sharpen in places where negativity clouds perspective. Holiness cannot take root in a space where compromise is welcomed for the sake of convenience. You were never meant to adapt to brokenness just to belong. You were called to carry my presence so tangibly that darkness feels discomfort around you. But to do that, you must first cleanse the space you dwell in. What books lie open on your table? What voices loop in your ears? Who do you allow to influence your thinking without challenge? These are not minor details, they are major gateways. And anything given unrestricted access to your mind or heart eventually takes root. I am not telling you to isolate yourself from the world, but to filter what you absorb from it. Even a garden open to sunlight must be weeded regularly. Take time to evaluate your atmosphere. Are you constantly exhausted after certain conversations? Do certain environments stir restlessness or rob your focus from me? These are not coincidences. They are signals. Your spirit is warning you that what surrounds you may be clashing with the presence I placed within you. And beloved, that inner sanctuary my spirit dwelling in you is sacred. You cannot keep inviting voices that oppose me and expect clarity in your calling. Oil and water do not mix. Neither do divine destiny and toxic influence. You might say, but this is just the world I live in, how can I escape it? I'm not asking you to run from every situation. I'm asking you to shift the atmosphere by what you carry into it. But before you can shift anything, you must be anchored yourself. You cannot pour peace if you're constantly leaking energy from compromise. You cannot speak truth with conviction if you are constantly silencing conviction to keep the peace with others. This is not about judgment, it's about alignment. You have a choice. Either the atmosphere around you conforms to my presence within you, or you allow it to conform you away from me. A neutral ground does not exist in the spiritual realm. Every influence either builds or breaks, edifies or erodes. That's why I placed you in this moment of examination. This message is not meant to accuse you, it's an invitation to awareness. I'm showing you now how much of your struggle is rooted in what you've tolerated. The confusion, the fatigue, the sudden discouragement, they often come from what you've allowed into your atmosphere without discerning its source. But it's not too late. Start cleansing now. Begin to remove what dulls your edge. Silence voices that mock your pursuit of purity. Say goodbye to environments that celebrate what I grieve. Make space, because I am ready to fill you again, but only if you make room. You will begin to feel the difference immediately. Peace will return where once there was static. Insight will rise where there was once distraction. Strength will be renewed, not because your circumstances changed, but because your spiritual oxygen is no longer polluted. You will move with less hesitation because your atmosphere will no longer be at war with your spirit. And that will ripple into your actions, your decisions, your relationships, your worship. The clearer the atmosphere, the louder my whisper becomes. So protect your atmosphere as you would your heartbeat. Guard it without apology. Cleanse it regularly. And let it become a sanctuary where heaven is comfortable to dwell. Because what surrounds you is more than scenery, it's soil. And the seeds I planted in you require purity to thrive. Saturate your space with worship, with truth, with voices that sharpen, not soothe decay. Be ruthless in this. What you refuse to evict will eventually own a room in your heart. But what you expel for the sake of my presence, I will replace with unshakable joy, clarity, and an atmosphere where miracles feel at home. Let me breathe in your space again. Clean it. Guard it. Watch what begins to grow. I see how hard you're trying to manage everything, to make the pieces fit, to hold the weight of outcomes, to fix what others broke, and to anticipate what might go wrong before it even happens. I see you staying up late, replaying conversations, scripting future ones, analyzing decisions, scanning the horizon for threats. You call it responsibility, but underneath, it's fear masquerading as strategy. And I say this with love. Your grip is not securing your future, it's strangling your faith. You have prayed for miracles, but refused to surrender the blueprints. You want me to move mountains while you cling tightly to the map, afraid I might reroute you somewhere unfamiliar. But child, if you won't loosen your hold, how can I lead you to the very breakthrough you're desperate for? Your control comes from a wound, I know that. Somewhere, someone let you down. Something collapsed when you least expected. A promise failed. A door closed too fast. And so you learned to anticipate pain and prepare for disappointment. You taught yourself to manage everything so you wouldn't have to feel that helplessness again. But in doing so, you've built a fortress around your own heart, one that even I cannot fill unless you open the gate. You ask for peace but carry contingency plans for everything. You ask me to speak, but interrupt me with your next plan. You cry for deliverance, but resist when I move in ways you didn't predict. This is the tension we must confront now. Not because I'm angry, but because I want to give you rest. Miracles require room. They do not bloom in environments dominated by control. I will not compete with your strategies. I will not override your decisions. If you insist on steering, I will let you because I honor your will. But understand this, the control you're clinging to is not protection, it's limitation. It's closing the windows where my spirit wants to breathe. It's placing walls where there should be wind. I want to do something new, but you keep asking me to do it your way. What if your idea of safe is actually what's keeping you stuck? What if your version of wise is what's slowing my answer? What if letting go doesn't mean losing, it means finally receiving? I'm not asking you to abandon logic or ignore wisdom. I'm asking you to surrender the outcome. I'm asking you to stop micromanaging my timing. I'm asking you to quit needing to understand every detail before you take a step. Faith is not reckless, it's trust. Trust that even when you don't see the full picture, I am still painting something beautiful. Trust that when doors shut unexpectedly, it wasn't punishment, it was preservation. Trust that when plans shift, it's because I saw what you did. Your life is not a puzzle you must constantly solve. It's a journey you are meant to walk with me, hand in hand, step by step, breath by breath. I know it feels risky to release control, but control is exhausting, and you're already tired. Don't deny it. The mental load, the emotional pressure, the spiritual fatigue, it's all rooted in your need to hold everything together. But beloved, that was never your job. You're not the glue of your family. You're not the architect of your future. You're not the healer of broken hearts. You are the vessel. I am the source. And when you finally hand me the reins, you'll find I've already prepared what you've been working so hard to earn. The provision is ready. The healing is scheduled. The redemption is in motion. I've been waiting not because you're unworthy, but because I won't force a miracle into a place that's already full of fear. So here is my call to you now. Unclench your fists. Lay down your tools. Silence the voice that tells you you're responsible if you don't anticipate every variable. Let me take over. Not partially. Not just the pieces you're okay with. All of it. The finances. The relationship. The timing. The uncertainty. Lay it all before me like a child places broken toys before a father, trusting that somehow I can make it whole again. And I will. Not only that, but I will do more than you asked. But it starts here. With surrender. With release. With the decision to finally breathe and trust that the one who made the stars is fully capable of guiding your next step without your constant supervision. Let go now. Watch what happens when I take the lead. Not every pause is punishment. Not every delay is denial. Sometimes, What feels like an interruption is actually intervention. I don't withhold to wound you, I delay to protect you. But because you measure time in minutes while I measure it in maturity, the waiting stretches you in ways you didn't expect. And it's in that stretch that frustration creeps in. You start to question everything, your prayers, your progress, even your worth. But beloved, hear me now. The longer it takes does not mean I've forgotten. It may mean the thing you're waiting for isn't ready, or it may mean you're not ready to carry it yet without it crushing you. And I love you too deeply to let anything arrive in your life that would damage what I've been healing. That's why this delay exists. The delay isn't punishment, it's alignment. You've been asking for doors to open, but I've seen what waits on the other side that would overwhelm your current strength. I've heard conversations you haven't. I've discerned motives you can't. I've seen ripple effects you would never imagine. So I slow the process, not because I'm distant, but because I'm near, so near, in fact, that I know how one rushed moment could undo years of preparation. So yes, I delay, but never carelessly. Every second serves a purpose. Every detour hides a lesson. And every waiting season holds a test. Will you trust me when the calendar doesn't comfort you? Will you still believe I'm good when the timeline contradicts your expectations? There's a danger in rushing to escape discomfort. In your urgency, you may leap toward the first opportunity that feels like progress, only to find yourself outside my covering. Just because something arrives quickly doesn't mean it was sent by me. The enemy can fast-track counterfeits. He knows how to mimic convenience, how to disguise chaos in the clothing of opportunity. But what I prepare is anchored in timing and truth. You won't have to manipulate it. You won't have to beg for it. You won't have to lose sleep chasing it. My timing may test your patience, but it will always protect your purpose. You may not understand the fullness of my reasoning yet, but the day will come when you'll look back and thank me for every not yet. In the meantime, ask me what the delay is teaching. There's always a purpose within the pause. Sometimes I'm refining your discernment, training your ears to recognize my voice more clearly. Sometimes I'm confronting hidden fears you didn't know were still shaping your decisions. Sometimes I'm detoxing old mindsets so they don't poison the new blessings I want to give you. Don't waste the waiting by resenting it. Press in. Worship with questions in your heart. Serve while you long for resolution. Grow deeper roots so when the winds of fulfillment finally blow, you won't be uprooted by the very thing you once begged for. This delay is not a void, it's a vineyard. And what grows here will nourish you in seasons to come. But you must be careful. Prolonged frustration in the waiting can lead to compromise. The longer you linger without understanding the why, the more tempting it becomes to manufacture your own version of now. That's when the wrong voices start to sound right. That's when distractions start to look like destiny. That's when you start asking others for answers I was always willing to give you if only you'd stayed with me in the quiet. So pause now. Not with anxiety, but with alertness. Ask yourself, have I mistaken a warning for rejection? Have I been trying to force open what was meant to remain shut a little longer? You see, I'm not trying to break your heart by making you wait. I'm preparing your heart so that when the promise comes, you don't mismanage it. The delay is a message in disguise. Stay still. Stay near. Don't rush ahead. Let me go first. I've never forgotten what you asked. I've not canceled the assignment. I've just put my hand out gently and whispered, not yet. Not to discourage you, but to preserve you. To shield you from consequences you can't yet perceive. To set you up for fullness, not fragments. So be mindful of delay. It may be the most merciful answer I can give you right now. And if you will trust me through the silence, through the confusion, through the stretching, then when the moment finally comes, you won't enter it wounded or weary. You'll walk in strong, ready, anchored in wisdom, crowned with clarity. And it will have been worth every second. There is something I placed inside of you that alerts you before destruction comes too close. It's not fear. It's not suspicion. It's me. That hesitation, that unease you feel around certain people, places, or decisions that quiet, unshakable sense that something isn't right that is not your imagination. That's your spiritual warning system. Too often, you've talked yourself out of it. You've silenced it with logic. You've overridden it with emotion. You've buried it beneath politeness, fear of confrontation, or the desperate need to keep the peace. And in doing so, you've ignored one of the greatest tools I gave you to protect yourself: spiritual discernment. You cannot afford to keep dismissing it. A check in your spirit isn't a nuisance, it's a gift. A sacred alarm meant to steer you away from compromise and collision. You don't need to wait for external confirmation when internal peace is already missing. Too many of my children wait for situations to become visibly dangerous before they react, but by then, damage has already begun. I want to teach you to respond to the subtle, not just the dramatic. When my spirit stirs unease in you, it is not a suggestion to be taken lightly. That disturbance is not always dramatic, but it is deliberate. It's me whispering, "This conversation is not safe." That connection is draining you. This opportunity is wrapped in flattery, not favor. You don't always need to understand why obedience doesn't require full explanation. It requires sensitivity. The more you ignore the checks, the more desensitized you become. You start second-guessing what once was clear. You begin explaining away dysfunction. You learn to tolerate what you once would have run from. And that, beloved, is how the enemy weaves his traps. Not through glaring evil, but through slow, subtle erosion of your ability to trust what I show you. If the enemy cannot destroy you quickly, he will distract you slowly. That is why you must stay sensitive. That is why you cannot afford to walk through life with your spiritual senses dulled by busyness, compromise, or noise. You must begin to honor your inner alerts. When you feel a sudden lack of clarity, pause. When a person brings confusion instead of peace, step back. When something looks good but feels off, bring it to me immediately. Stop rushing past what I'm trying to highlight. The discomfort isn't a flaw, it's a flag. And when you ignore it, you invite consequences that were never assigned to you. I've watched you walk into rooms where your peace drained instantly. That wasn't weakness. That was spiritual detection. But instead of walking out, you stayed to avoid awkwardness. You gave more weight to human approval than to my protection. And while I covered you even in those moments, I want better for you. I want you walking in wisdom, not wounds. Think about how many delays, heartbreaks, and cycles could have been avoided if you just listened to that initial nudge. That subtle tug that said this doesn't sit right, or something about this isn't clean. You felt it and you wrestled it into silence. You made excuses for the person. You ignored the tension in your chest. You chose comfort over clarity. And I stayed close through it all, grieving every time your spirit grew quieter, every time discernment was pushed further away in favor of what looked promising but was never my will. But here is the beautiful truth. It's not too late to recalibrate. You can become sensitive again. You can restore your ability to hear me before crisis forces you to. Start by repenting for where you silenced me. Ask me to sharpen your spiritual senses. Detox from the noise that dulls your discernment, constant entertainment, chaos, and ungodly influence. Return to the stillness. My whisper still speaks, but it requires space. I won't shout over your distractions, but I will honor your intentionality. Make room for my voice again, and you will start to feel what you've been missing. Not just the avoidance of danger, but the pull toward peace. From now on, treat every disruption to your inner peace like a sacred signal. Don't just analyze it, act on it. You don't need the full picture to move in obedience. You just need sensitivity to the source. And I promise, when you follow my leading, especially when it's inconvenient, you'll discover how many battles you avoided before they even started. Let me train you in this. Let peace be your compass. Let discernment become your defense. And most of all, never again ignore the check in your spirit. It's me, loving you enough to interrupt your plans before they interrupt your future. The winds are not slowing down. The world around you will not suddenly quiet itself so that you can find peace. You must choose it in the middle of the noise. You must build before the flood arrives, not during. Too many of my children postpone obedience until life becomes more convenient. They say, "I'll seek you when I have more time," or "I'll change when things settle down," not realizing that the very storms they are trying to survive were never meant to shake them if only they had secured themselves to my truth beforehand. Delays in spiritual preparation leave you vulnerable when battles come unannounced. And battles always come without warning. This is not a message of fear, it is a call to readiness. I don't want you bracing for survival. I want you established for victory. You have seen it already, how easily things around you shift. What you once called stable can be shaken in moments. Job to change. Relationships rob you. Health falters. Opportunities vanish. And in those moments, if your peace is tied to outcomes, you will be undone. But if your peace is anchored in me, no external storm can destroy your internal stability. That is why I keep drawing you deeper, not to burden you, but to brace you. I want your foundation to run so deep in me that when the wind howls and the waves crash, you are still, not because the storm is small, but because your root system runs deeper than the shaking. Think of the trees that survive hurricanes. It's not their beauty that saves them. It's not their height or their fruit. It's the unseen roots that anchor them beneath the surface. That's what I'm building in you. That's why I've allowed certain shakings to come, not to break you, but to expose what wasn't anchored properly. Where your faith was shallow, I'm calling it deeper. Where your trust was conditional, I'm purifying it. Where your obedience depended on comfort, I'm sanctifying it. You cannot build storm-proof faith during the downpour. You must start now. Today. Not when it's easier. Not when you feel ready. Your feelings don't define your foundation, your choices do. Stop waiting for perfect conditions to make me your priority. Life will never offer you a neatly packaged moment where everything aligns. You must disrupt your own distractions. You must decide that nothing, no relationship, no job, no temporary comfort is worth compromising your connection with me. You don't need more motivation. You need revelation. You need to see what's really at stake when you choose delay. Every moment you spend unanchored is a moment where the enemy can sow doubt, fear, and deception. Every day you postpone depth is a day you remain vulnerable to instability. But when you plant yourself in me, when you let my word become your daily bread, when you build your routines around my presence, when you guard your peace like its treasure, then you are truly safe, no matter what shifts around you. And don't confuse stillness with stagnation. When you are rooted in me, even in the silence, you are growing. Even in the waiting, you are being fortified. Others may not see the transformation, but I do. I see the way your faith is deepening. I see how your priorities are aligning. I see how you're learning to trust me even when the map is blank. And that hidden growth is what will carry you when visible support fails. So do not despise the hidden season. It's not punishment, it's preparation. It's me building in you a foundation that cannot be shaken. Beloved, storms will always come. That is part of life in a broken world. But you are not alone in the wind. I walk with you through it. I speak peace into it. And I call you to build a shelter that is not made of fear, but of faith. A shelter where my promises are the walls and my presence is the covering. So build now. Dig deep. Let go of the distractions and excuses. Anchor your soul not tomorrow, but today. Because when the next storm rises, and it will, you will not be tossed. You will not crumble. You will not drown. You will stand, not because of your strength, but because of the foundation you chose to honor before the winds came. That is wisdom. That is protection. That is how you endure, not by avoiding the storm, but by being unshakable within it. Move quickly into this revelation. The solutions you've been begging for aren't sealed behind complicated theology or elite access. They are waiting behind the door of praise, a door most people walk past because it doesn't look strategic enough in a crisis. Yet in the economy of my kingdom, worship is the master key that swings open vaults of instruction reserved for those who know how to celebrate me before breakthroughs break out. Praise is not a warm-up exercise. It's a security clearance. Every hallelujah issued from a place of raw dependence authenticates your identity in the courts of heaven and grants admission into war rooms, where I distribute blueprints angels rush to implement. When walls close in, your instinct may be to research more, network harder, or brainstorm longer, but heaven's protocol flips conventional logic, soundtrack the siege with gratitude, and watch how the atmosphere shifts from panic to possibility while devils covering their ears stagger back because they can endure complaints all day. But a single shout of genuine adoration fries their frequencies and scrambles their surveillance. You think time spent praising is time lost. I declare it's time invested at exponential interest. Invisible scribes record every note and loop it like coordinates to divine reinforcements. While you sing, I station watchers on ramparts you didn't even know existed. I reroute threats before they mature. I highlight hidden allies who were previously camouflaged by your stress. Feel the urgency. Strategies are being whispered right now, yet they ride on wavelengths only worship can tune your spirit to receive. Remember Jericho plans delivered between trumpet blasts, not committee meetings. Recall Paul and Silas escape routes drafted on the tremor of midnight hymns, not legal petitions. You are no different. Decisions about your next move, funding for the vision, guidance for that conversation, revelation for the puzzle that has kept you pacing at 3 a.m. All of it hovers one act of wholehearted exaltation away. And do not confuse polished music with powerful praise. The earth-shaking note is sincerity, not symmetry. A croaked melody in a dim kitchen can download broader strategy than a stadium concert empty of surrender. So, when confusion circles like vultures, throw your head back and declare my goodness out loud. When resources run thin, bless my abundance until the room quivers with expectancy. When accusation hisses, exalt my faithfulness until the lies have no oxygen. Each syllable enlarges your spiritual bandwidth, allowing classified instructions to stream without distortion. The sooner you adopt this posture, the sooner corridors of insight extend before your feet. Delay, and you'll keep pacing familiar halls, rattling locked doors, convinced I'm silent when in fact I'm singing over you, waiting for you to harmonize so frequencies align and secrets transfer. Make it immediate. Cultivate vocal gratitude in traffic. Draft spontaneous psalms on sticky notes. Turn sighs into refrains while folding the same laundry that yesterday felt like evidence of monotony. These aren't religious theatrics. They are tactical uploads. As praise rises, the din of anxiety fades, neurons realign, creativity spikes suddenly. What felt like a dead end reveals a side street you couldn't see through the fog of self-preservation. You'll sense which email to send, which door to stop knocking on, which proposal to shelve for a season, which wounded relationship to revisit with new humility. Praise does that. It recalibrates perception until opportunity emerges from clutter. Ignore this, and you'll keep scrambling for random keys on a ring that grows heavier yet opens nothing. Obey it and you will watch puzzles click together with supernatural speed. Therefore, do not postpone. Turn the next breath into a thank you weaponized by desperation and trust. Let praise precede spreadsheets, meetings, and midnight research. Enter the code now, step through the door, and gather the strategies that casual listeners will never hear but urgent worshipers cannot miss. Amen.